man. Hello, hello, hello. What is going on? All right, everybody. I'm sorry about that. I think I got the webcam to work. Should be working. Audio working okay. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. You guys ready? Yeah? Polar Digital says Morj get Elden Ring. I got some good news for you people who've been wanting me to play Elden Ring. So, what have I been saying I wanted to play for the longest time before I played Elden Ring? Phantom Greyfire, what's up? It's been a minute. Gold changed his name from Ivan. Bro looks tired as fuck. I am super tired. Not in a, like, I've got plenty of energy for the stream itself, but I've had a super long day. Also, I just had to do a lot of, okay, if we get far enough in the stream, or, is this even worth talking? I wanted to talk about the fun thing. I wanted to talk about the fun thing first. The other thing doesn't matter. That's like life stuff, basically, that has been essentially resolved. I did have to do a lot of walking today, I'll just say that. But the life stuff has been resolved. Let me tell you guys this. Elden Ring, which I've wanted to play for the longest time, as you know. What did I want to play before it? I wanted to play Bloodborne, right? So finally, was able to borrow a PlayStation this weekend. PlayStation 4. And Bloodborne. And now I'm currently playing PlayStation 4. I'm currently playing Bloodborne. I'm playing Bloodborne right now. I have Bloodborne. Isn't that crazy? I wanted to play Bloodborne for so fucking long, and I started playing Bloodborne. Anyway, let's get the stream likes up to 100. Disheveled Morj. Yeah, I'm going to take a shower after this stream. Shower after stream. Post-stream shower. Also, should probably get a haircut this week. This might be a haircut week. I try to get a haircut once a month. I don't know if it's been a month. Let me jot that note down. It might be a haircut time. It might be haircut time. I think it's probably haircut time. I have a theory, by the way, which is okay. Hold on. I have a theory. So like, I go to my hair person, my hairstylist person, and she cuts my hair as they're wont to do. So she cuts my hair, and my goal is to come there once a month. I think she cuts it like I think she doesn't do as much cutting as she should. Does this make sense? Like, she will leave it a little bit longer, and she's like, oh, it's because it looks good. Like she'll, how do I say this? I think she leaves it a little bit longer so that I have to come back to get a haircut sooner. You know what I mean? Because if you do a deep haircut where like your hair gets really short, or like you do a proper amount of hair cutting, then it's going to be a while before they need to come back for a haircut, right? I think that, like, because I kind of let her do her thing for what she feels like looks good, and I feel like she's been leaving it go a little bit longer and longer, because then that way I hit the point where I'm like, my hair is too unruly, I need to come back in faster, and then she makes more money. That's what I kind of think. I don't know. Keenan, what's up? Thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 21 months, man. I've always appreciated your support. I'm actually really glad Vegapunk got cut off. We're so close to the end of One Piece. It's sad. It's been 15 plus years for me, but I'm not ready for the answers. Yeah, I was not expecting. I mean, most of us heading into Egghead were not expecting this level of information just yet. I thought that this would all be Void Century stuff, but I think that Oda's got so much shit saved up for the end of the story in terms of lore reveals that he can give it to us in these sort of batches. I mean, keep in mind, he took 6 chapters or so to give us the amount of information he did, right? Like, just in terms of that stuff, that was 5 chapters in itself, right? So when it comes time for actual Void Century lore reveals, like, how fucking long is that going to take, you know? Attilio, thanks for the 5. Hey, Morj, ever thought of best One Piece key moments to your list? Best Morj stream moments to your list? Also watch Mushoku at some point in lifetime. Mushoku Tensei, right? I'm going to pull that up. That's like a isekai, right? Mushoku Tensei. Best One Piece moments to your list. Yeah, we could do that. Best one. I'm gonna make a note of that. Best One Piece moments to your list. That could be a lot of fun. I feel like we've maybe done something like that. Fuck, that could be a lot of fun. That's more fun than this. That's more fun than this, right? We're gonna do this one, but I will save that topic for next. Maybe not next stream, but a similar stream. stream. I think it'll be fitting after we get like some really, really hype moment or something like that. You know what I mean? Hype moment, heartwarming moment, emotional moment, something like that. Where are we at? One second here. Sorry, 1 second. Lava says, just tell her, since you leave it longer, I like it better. Might not come as much. I mean, usually I like the way that she styles it. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. I might try a different haircut person just to see. Stormy says, nah, I want to see the chat argue. Chat arguing over controversial moments. I mean, chat will also argue over, we'll all argue over like what are the best moments or the most controversial moments. I will say right now, I don't think this Bonnie moment in the grand scheme of things is going to go down as one of the most controversial moments. There's a lot more One Piece controversial moments out there. Straw Choco, thanks for being a member for 21 months. Raid not failing is most controversial. That's most controversial for us and our, you know, the general Morj viewership, I think. I think for the broader public, the raid not failing isn't not. I think there was a lot of controversial aspects to the Wano arc for a lot of people, but because most people didn't believe the raid would fail, it's not going to be controversial that it didn't happen. It's going to be more so like individual things about the Wano arc that lots of people didn't like. But then Wano also had a lot that people really love, so it depends. Tom, thanks for bringing Yonko to your member for 21 months. My card got canceled, and I was worried my membership streak would end, but it didn't. Love the vids, Morj. Been watching since the Whole Cake Island vid 6 years ago. Thanks so much, man. Like, seriously, 21 months is insane. The streak is the streak. I know that you've been around for, like, God knows how long. Like, I mean, more than 21 months. Like, you've been a part of streams for longer than that. But, yeah. I recognize obviously the names that have been around for like the longest amount of time. 24th Haki says, if that's true, you got a good bad barber bro, lol. Don't judge it by this. This is in the latter stages. This is the disheveled stage. This is different. And even this isn't the worst in the world. The general Morj cult. No, we don't say cult here. You can't say cult. You got to say something else. We need a different word for it. The Morj. Okay, we'll use cult as a placeholder, but it's just a placeholder. That does not make this a cult. Eric J.O., thanks for the 5. Sup, Morj. Love your recent Zoro video. Also, everyone liked the stream. I agree with Eric J.O. And thanks. I'm glad that you enjoyed the Zoro video. I think that Zoro fans will obviously like that video. And then a lot of the rest of the comments are like, Zoro is not underrated. I don't think Zoro is underrated. I do think... How do I say this? I think Zoro is one of those characters that he definitely gets put in conversations that he shouldn't be. I meant the goal of okay, so walk with me here, right? This is some I guess YouTube insight, content creation insight, okay? The video that I wanted to make was talking about in general how Zoro has unlocked aspects of Haki earlier in the story than for example Luffy, right? That was the general concept of the video. Like Zoro was tapping into Haki really fucking early in the series. And if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of like, was it advanced armament Haki or armament Haki against Mr. One? Was it observation Haki against Mr. One or just the breadth of all things or something like that? If you want to get into the nitty-gritty of what it is, it's like, whatever. If you want to get into, was Ashura always advanced conquerors? Is it even advanced conquerors right now? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, I have my opinions. I made my arguments for it. I'm not interested in belaboring those points. I think the simple things that most people can agree on is that Ashura is something Conqueror's Haki related, right? Or spirit related. Maybe people don't even agree with. Okay, simple thing that people can agree on is that armament Haki was used against Mr. One. To what degree, what capacity, that can be debated, right? That's a simple thing that I wanted to talk about. That Zoro has generally throughout the story, he's gotten Haki blooms pretty frequently anytime that he's been in some extreme scenario. And he was doing it fucking early as fuck in the story, like against Mr. One. It wasn't a video to say like, oh, Zoro's as strong as Luffy or something like that, because I don't believe that's the case. It was just a video I wanted to talk about that aspect of things. Then that kind of led to basically, okay, how is this being framed and marketed, right? Because the thumbnail, title, etc. is a huge part of it. So then that turns into, what's the most interesting way to angle it? Like, most interesting way to talk about it and phrase it is like, yeah, we like sometimes we can even underrate Zoro in terms of his Haki development and growth. I think that that's an interesting way to market it, I suppose. But at the same time, it's obviously like, no, I don't actually personally believe that Zoro in general, his general strength is underrated by viewers. I think most people, or a lot of people, do probably overrate him. You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Also, let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Gold changed his name from Ivan. Oh, okay. Gold changed his name from Ivan. Okay. Personally, I'd argue Luffy used armament early too, but that's a hot take. I don't think Luffy used armament. Here's something I talked about in the podcast, right? This is a weekly podcast that I do for patrons, but it's something that I talked about in the recent weekly podcast. So one of the reasons that I think Luffy maybe used Haki or had Haki blooms less frequently than Zoro pre-time skip, and this is, I think this is a headcanon thing, but it's one of those that tracks really, really well if you think about it even for a little bit, right? Haki blooms come from when your back is against the wall. That's usually what we've seen, right? In pre-time skip, because Luffy has always had his devil fruit and his creativity, anytime that Luffy's back has been against the wall or he's hit a wall in some sense and needs to get stronger, he's always had the route of like thinking of new attacks or new moves or new techniques with his devil fruit. Like he lost to Crocodile round 1, and then Crocodile was like, oh, that's because you don't use your devil fruit to its full capacity. And then Luffy comes back round 2 with a whole new string of moves, and he's like, I took what you said to me, and I put that in the vault here and processed it and thought about it, and yeah, I can use my devil fruit better. So Luffy starts kicking Crocodile's ass round 2 with a whole slew of new devil fruit moves. It's the same thing against Lucci, right? Luffy gets his ass kicked. He's like, I'm gonna go to the workshop, come back with gear 2nd, gear 3rd. Anytime Luffy was up against the wall against Lucci in their final fight, he would like pull out gear 3rd, or he would go back to using gear 2nd and new techniques with gear 2nd. I think just the fact that Luffy's always had that room to, when he's hit a wall, where traditionally a character might be forced to have a Haki bloom, pre-time skip, he was always able to figure out something new with his devil fruit that he could abuse, or a new technique or a new form or power-up or something like that. He was always able to come up with something, and so he was never really like done for, if that makes sense. He was always able to come up with something within the power set that he already had, right? Whereas with Zoro, it's like, you've got a sword. You've just got swords. You're trying to cut Mr. 1. You cannot cut Mr. 1 physically. Like, he's thrown the kitchen sink. He's thrown the kitchen sink, the bathtub, the fucking garage. He threw a fucking building at Mr. 1. Nothing is working. Zoro's just getting cut up, right? He's basically being left on the verge of death. He, like, whatever subconscious, whatever the way that Haki blooms work or whatever, the only natural route for Zoro to be able to best Mr. 1 here is a Haki bloom, right? He's got nothing else, right? Swords are not cutting it. Nothing else. He's forced. His spirit is forced to rise to the occasion, right? Luffy, obviously, he's forced to rise to the occasion against, like, a Crocodile against Lucci, etc., but because he's got options, right, like, he's never really put in quite that same spot as Zoro is. Just like there's nothing like you guys get what I'm saying? Like he's just pigeonholed that tightly that he's forced to explode with some Haki bloom or something, right? When that stuff finally started happening, when was that? Marineford, right? That was at a point where like Luffy's gears and stuff, everything that he had in his arsenal was useless. But what started happening more and more frequently? Conqueror's Haki blooms. Observation Haki against Mihawk. To me, that makes sense. And if you really look post-time skip, right? What's so interesting to me is Luffy comes out of post-time skip, having trained with Rayleigh, and he's maximized his devil fruit at that point, right? Except for Awakening, which is its own thing. That's like just unlocking the key to the final form, right? But aside from Awakening, everything in terms of what he can logically do with a rubber devil fruit, Luffy's figured it out during the training post-time skip, right? He's figured out gear 2nd and gear 3rd. He's got that down. He's figured out gear 4th and a litany of gear 4th forms. He's like, I've got my muscle form, right? But I've also got my tank man form. I've got my snake man form. I've got like a variety. Like he's maximized this fruit in every possible capacity. So he's kind of done pushing the Gomu Gomu no Mi once he's come out of the time skip, right? The only thing left for him to do after that is just awaken the fruit. But in terms of what he can reasonably do in its unawakened form, he's maximized that. And so the first time that Luffy, and it's made clear that he's only learned the basics of Haki, however, right? So this is the first section of the story where Luffy's done kind of innovating on his fruit. And so the situations he's put in, like Katakuri, the beauty of the Katakuri situation is Katakuri's fruit mirrors Luffy's fruit. Katakuri can do everything Luffy's fruit can do, but better for the most part. And so now is the first time in the story that Luffy has a motivated Haki bloom in battle to get stronger, right? Because to me, this is it's all headcanon, but it's a line of headcanon that I think makes a lot of sense, which is just that pre-time skip, Luffy's growth was largely Devil Fruit based. Post-time skip, he's coming fully realized as a Devil Fruit user. The only thing missing is awakening, right? And that's why he's finally getting his Haki blooms post-time skip, because that's the type of growth that he's forced into from then on. And the perfect fight for him to get his first real Haki bloom mid-battle was Katakuri, because Katakuri was the perfect example of, like, no more improving your Devil Fruit. I have your Devil Fruit. I'm Katakuri. I have your Devil Fruit, but I've got a better version of it. If you want to beat me, you need to reach my level in terms of Haki. I love that framing, and I think that just makes a lot of sense with the way I view Luffy's growth in terms of why he didn't get Haki blooms earlier, but got Haki blooms really only once he'd really mastered his Devil Fruit. That's my thought process on that. Don't know if you guys agree on that, but I think it really fits beautifully. Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Sorry for the long tangent on that, but it was just something I wanted to talk about. Henchme976, thanks for the 5. If Lion Song was Haki, could Zoro have beaten Enel with it if he bothered to try? Bro just got unlucky. I think it's also very hard to hit Enel if Enel doesn't want to be hit. If Enel was just being his arrogant self and was just like, I'll just tank it, then I do think that would have been a problem. But just having Lion Song alone doesn't guarantee you beat Enel. Because, for example, Wiper had the equivalent, which is Sea Stone stuff in his he had Sea Stone shit, right? He had Sea Stone shit in his rollerblades, whatever the fuck they have, the Skypians. He had Sea Stone shit. And Wiper was even able to, nobody was able to get close to Enel until Enel was arrogant enough, like Wiper got the drop on him, right? And then even then, Wiper actually straight up got a full-on rejectile direct hit on Enel, which is basically like the most powerful shit that you can kind of do in Skypiea. And Enel just restarted his heart. So yeah, I think that Zoro could probably, it's a few factors, right? It's a few factors in that Zoro having Lion Song, that's a big deal, but one, would he be able to hit Enel with Enel's insane range? The reason Luffy's even able to get up close and hit Enel, or attempt to hit Enel regularly, was because Enel's lightning stuff that would normally keep you out and just blast you from afar, that doesn't work on Luffy, right? So if Enel was taking Zoro seriously, then no. Skypiea Enel, Zoro would have no shot at getting close to him physically. And even if he did, with Mantra, it's very difficult to actually hit Enel. Luffy had to literally do so many things, figure out, he turned off his brain, he used his fruit and ricochet and everything like that just to hit Enel once. It takes a lot of effort if Enel's really trying not to get hit, at least by pre-time skip standards, right? But let's pretend, and let's just say that Enel was being really arrogant. He gets caught off guard, kind of like Wiper was able to catch him off guard that one time with the Sea Stone skates. And Wiper hit him with the rejectile, right? Let's pretend instead Zoro hit Enel with Lion Song. I don't think that puts Enel down, just because Enel, he is actually really, really difficult to put down. We saw he could do things like restart his heart, right? He has a significant amount of capacity to take damage, right? At least from what we saw, Luffy got a good number of hits on him. It took ultimately the giant Ogon rifle to take Enel down and everything like that. Lion Song is a devastating attack, but I don't think Zoro can one-shot Enel. And then if you can't one-shot Enel, then after that it's just impossible, because we saw what Enel did to Wiper and all of them after he recovered from that rejectile move, you know. So if the question is could Zoro hypothetically have hit Enel? Could he have theoretically done damage via Armament Haki? Yeah, he theoretically could have done damage with Armament Haki. Could he have actually beaten Enel? I think no. Enel was genuinely broken. I think it takes more than just being having one Haki move in your arsenal to beat Enel. Enel was, I'm not saying Enel's would be a monster in the New World standards or anything like that, but I think just having a Haki move or just being able to theoretically do some damage to him is not enough to just beat him, right? Like, Luffy had to really fucking work to, like, even, like, Luffy having complete immunity to Enel's attacks, like, Enel's broken ass offensive attacks, and Luffy being able to, like, all of Luffy's moves technically being able to hit Enel, even with those two, Luffy still really had to work to actually land any moves on Enel, you know? Tom, thanks for the 5. Morj, couldn't Zoro have used Conqueror's Haki in Ashura against Kaido, but not with Kaku and Pacifista? Why are you assuming it has to be every instance or none at all? Because otherwise, what is Ashura then? Ashura has to be something, right? I know people say, like, oh, it's just a manifestation of Zoro's spirit. It's like, manifestations of spirit are Haki, right? Ashura, as far as I understand, it literally cannot be armament Haki, right? Ashura, as far as we understand, it has to be Haki based. Otherwise, there's just no such thing. There's no just magic thing that just is in One Piece that would make sense for Ashura. It has to be Haki based, right? And if you want to say it's armament Haki based, it really, really, really doesn't make sense to be armament Haki based, because from everything that we've seen, and I should have just talked about this more in the video, everything we've seen in armament Haki, like, armament Haki is straight up surface level, right? So it's guarding your skin, right? And then really advanced applications provide some level of an invisible barrier above the skin, right? But anything that turns into, like, super high level manifestations of Haki, like they're not even touching type stuff, right? The really, really big displays of Haki, those are all Conqueror's Haki. Those are all advanced Conqueror's Haki, right? With armament, everything we've had explained to us about armament, it is fairly limited in its application, right? It is really just basically surface level skin stuff, or maybe like slightly a little bit past the skin, but not so much that it doesn't look like there's no contact being made, right? That's why the they're not touching thing, that's the trademark of Advanced Conqueror's Haki, right? So with Ashura, it's this curious case. It has to be something Haki-based because it's a manifestation of Zoro's spirit. There's no other bullshit. There's no other magic thing. It's not just some Zoro-specific, like, it's just, it has to be something Haki-based. That's what manifestations of your spirit are. It's Haki, right? So if we're trying to place it into some category, observation, we can all cross that off. It's not that. Armament or Conquerors. I think if you just present it, if you took Zoro's name out of it and just presented this ability straight up, it's like this character can actually exude so much Haki that it's as though it's visually visible, right? It's a visually visible form, and it's like to the point that they're manifesting other arms and limbs straight up, right? You would not say that that's armament Haki, because it just doesn't make sense with any of the descriptions of armament Haki. It doesn't really fit Conqueror's Haki either, but it's a lot closer, considering that with Conqueror's Haki, we've at least seen that the manifestation of Haki can get to a point that it's going way past your limbs or your body and stuff like that. Like, it can be, like, Conqueror's Haki can really, really, really flow out of you to this exorbitant degree, right? So, if you're just examining Ashura whatsoever with our basic understanding of Haki, it just, like, it would make zero sense for it to be armament. It literally cannot be armament based on any definition of armament we've ever had, right? There's nothing close to this that's armament. Everything that's with, like, a really large flow of Haki coming out of you, that's always Conquerors. That's always Conquerors. And considering literally every other context clue Oda has ever given us about what Luffy and Zoro were doing in Chapter 1010, that, like, Oda all but spelled out with the phrasing that he used that this is Conqueror's Haki, and Kaido literally talks about Conqueror's Haki after Ashura is used. It just does not, there's no conceivable way to, like Ashura just doesn't fall into the circle of what armament Haki could conceivably be, period, right? I think it is much more likely that we get further in the story and we see some other character, like a Shanks, like a Mihawk or something, do something similar to Ashura, and it turns out to be Conqueror's Haki, rather than the other possibility that we just learned that this is some use of armament Haki that some other character reveals down the line. You get what I'm saying? Like, I think it's much more likely that we see somebody else do something similar that's Conquerors at some point, than we see somebody else do something similar that's armament. That's just my thought. Maybe that's wrong, but that's just what the text seems to imply to me, and there's just nothing about armament that seems to be even close to it. It's one of those things where it's just like, if you just look at this, what this display of Haki seems like in a vacuum, and you take out the name Zoro, ignore Zoro, because I think that's the big thing. People are like, Zoro should be too weak to be able to do this early on, right? I don't think Oda cares about that sort of thing. That's my only thought. I don't think Oda cares about that sort of thing. If your reasoning is Zoro should be too weak to do this, I just don't think that's on necessarily how Oda thinks about this shit, personally. I think that he is generally kind of sloppy with how he thinks about Haki in general, relative to the high standards at which he writes everything else, right? So if you just take that little concept out, and if instead you saw some shit like pretend instead you saw Mihawk, right? Do something where he's fighting and then he goes into this mode where Haki is being exuded and his spirit is being manifested, and he's now got like 3 arms carrying 3 Yorus or something like that, right? And it results in like super powerful attacks, shit like that, and like he scars Kaido or something, right? You would probably be like, oh shit, that's got to be Advanced Conqueror's Haki. It just is. It wouldn't make any fucking sense as armament, wouldn't make sense as anything else besides Conqueror's. I think it's just because people have this thing where it's like, no, but Zoro just shouldn't be able to do that. I think if you ignore because the shouldn't is your own personal bias, right? It's just like you don't feel like Zoro should be able to do that early, right? To me, it's like, I would agree, it doesn't really make sense, but I also don't think that Zoro should have been like using Ryo and shit against Mr. One that early. That seems early. So I just don't think that Oda probably thinks this stuff out that far ahead. I think in Oda's mind, he may not even thought out like specifically the concepts of like how Conqueror's Haki, Advanced Conqueror's Haki and shit work. I think he was just like, I'm going to have Zoro do this move, and it's going to be a prelude to him being revealed to be a Conqueror's Haki user down the line. I don't know. That's my thought. But I think if you really just think about Ashura, it's just like, how would you convince yourself that it's armament Haki? How is it in any way similar to other displays of armament? Like, how would with armament Haki, it just doesn't fit any other explanation we've ever had of armament Haki. Armament Haki doesn't result in that level of flow of like Haki just spilling out of you to the point that you can manifest other forms and stuff like that. Conqueror's Haki, again, we haven't had that established either, that you can do transformations and stuff, but it has been made clear that like extreme flows of Haki, where it's just like large displays of Haki to the point that it's affecting surroundings, it's like creating a no contact sort of thing, it goes past being just in like a skin level of armor and stuff like that. It's been established that's all of that stuff falls under Conqueror's Haki. So I don't know. I mean, Kaido gets cut and he's literally talking about Conqueror's Haki. I just don't know how much more clear Oda could make it. Anyway. Tom, thanks for the 5. I agree Zoro learned Haki versus Mr. One, but I don't think full armament. I think it's more akin to Luke using the Force, episode 4, yet couldn't push, mind tricks, etc. I feel like the way I've thought about it is just like Zoro probably learned basically that if he really, because he uses Shishi Sansan a few more times pre-time skip, right? A couple more times, and each time he has to go into this sort of like very set sort of routine where it's like, okay, I got to put my other swords away. I can only focus on one sword. I got to get my stance just right, my timing just right. Okay, and now I can do this move that lets me cut steel, right? To me, that's basically, you could say it's like Luke using the Force right then, but like imagine Luke's able to do it a couple more times without the training in episode 5, episode 6, which he kind of does, right? Like he, if I recall correctly, at the beginning of episode 5, he's able to kind of pull his lightsaber to him or something towards the beginning of the episode, right? I think that's still like a full use of the Force, the same way I think Zoro still had a full use of armament, but it's more so Zoro doesn't really understand what he's doing. He's just like, okay, I need to go into really, really focus mode and like sit down, focus. Can't be playing with all these swords, just need one sword. Just really like hone in, tap into that thing I tapped in that one time, and then I can do one move where I can do steel cutting level stuff. I get that sort of sense. Black Lightning, thanks for the 10. Sword attacks in One Piece are not portrayed the same as physical attacks. Damn near all of them one-shot. Look at all Zoro's fights. This is why his toughest fights are people he can't cut. That is true. That is true that very often sword attacks in One Piece, they are just, like, it's to end the fight. I do think that there is... So, like, you're like, well, he would just be able to beat Enel straight up because, like, a single sword attack would beat Enel. You know, I guess we could go back and forth into that, but, you know, like, here, let's pull up, right? I assume you're talking with context to Enel, right? I just think straight up that Zoro, it's like... I don't think Oda would ever write Zoro beating Enel at that point in time, because like even if Zoro was gonna tap Shishi Sansan or whatever, I think the idea was supposed to be that Enel is just broken, and it is very, very difficult to defeat him without like Luffy is an outlier for a reason, right? Let's take a look. Like, Enel could just do this shit. Like, keep in mind, nobody could fucking like this. So if you were actually to do a power scale tier list of characters in Skypiea, right? The tier list goes like this: it's Enel, and then this snake. Like, no joke. It's Enel and then the snake. The snake is fucking broken. If you guys recall, nobody could do jack shit to this snake. Wiper, Zoro, Luffy got eaten by the snake. Nobody, and then he spent the rest of the arc trying to figure out how to get out. Nobody could do anything to the snake. Enel one-shots the snake. I just think it's kind of funny that the Skypiea tier list is basically like, Enel is so far above everybody else that essentially this snake is kind of the equivalent of... This snake would kind of be the equivalent of, like, Kaido for the Skypiea arc, if that makes sense. Like, the snake is about as broke in the Skypiea arc as Kaido is in the Wano arc, in the sense that nobody can really handle this snake one-on-one, and no one can really, like, beat it. You know? And then Enel just one-shots it. So, like, just to remind people of context... No, I don't think Zoro was necessarily like one Shishi Sansan away from beating Enel. Enel was supposed to be God in Skypiea. Like, genuinely, by Skypiea standards, this dude was God. Like, no one is beating Enel. Also, is this display working correctly? Yeah. Luffy is supposed to be this significant outlier in that sense, right? In the sense that the only reason Luffy can take Enel is because, for Luffy... in this specific matchup, Enel stops being God. He just has to be a normal combatant, right? But for everybody else, yeah, this is basically... I like this a lot, by the way. This is cute. I forgot about this. Look, everybody look at this. Everyone look at this. This is Zoro thinking that Nami just died. Or at least got hit by that. Oh, look at this. This is adorable. Can you imagine Zoro today having this sort of, like, expression? I don't know. Isn't this sweet? I've never seen this, or not. We've always seen this, but we read the arc. But like, I just don't remember this. Like, this is Zoro thinking that Nami just died, not died, but just like got fucking fried. It's so sincere. It's innocent. I don't know. I like this. It's just like, oh no, Nami, and like, yeah, this is more the Zoro that we know. I don't know. I like that. Isn't that cute? I think that's cute. Anyway, the snake just gets fried, right? No one's beaten the snake. It's fucking hard to hit Enel, right? So, like, let's look. So Zoro actually attempts to fight Enel. Look what happens here, right? So some shit happens. Yeah, Gonfall one-shotted, doesn't even land a hit. Robin done. Okay, let's see Zoro's attempt. So if I recall correctly, Zoro just gets blocked straight up. So Zoro charges him, and it's not like it's a free hit, you know? It's not like it's a free hit. Enel's still a really good combatant. Like, he can dodge and shit if he feels like it. You know, he usually just, it's for fun. For him, it's just for fun. He doesn't have to. But he can kind of just stop stuff whatever he wants. Here he chooses to show. So I guess in this moment, let's say Enel's chilling and he chooses to allow Zoro to hit him with Shishi Sansan, then Enel would be in trouble right here. I definitely think Enel would be in trouble right here. I guess there's no real way to say would that have one-shotted Enel or not. I guess there's no way to say. Because Enel can restart his heart, but it's not like Zoro's exactly like doing anything that restarts his heart. I mean, there's the flip side, which is like, here, like, Enel could also, instead of just dodging or tanking it, so Zoro charges Enel, right? He charges Enel. Enel can just defeat him straight up, right? Like, Zoro's not faster than lightning, at least at this point in the story. You can't really do anything about this. So Enel could just hit him with one of these, and then it's game over. And, like, people forget how strong Enel is. Like, it's just one attack and Zoro's done. Enel did shock him a little bit before, but, this is just, like, baby stuff for him so far. And, like, if Enel feels like it, he can just call down a God's judgment. And Enel can spam these. Like, he can just, like, this is pre-time skip shit. This is a lot. I don't know. If we want to play that with the hypothetical that Enel just lets Zoro hit him with a Shishi Sansan because Enel's too arrogant, then, yeah, I think that it would be bad for Enel. I don't know if it would one-shot him. One shot is, I don't know. But Black Lightning, I agree, that's a good point. Also, let's get the stream likes. Oh, that's pretty good. Stream likes are good. Let's get into 150. Sheriff Luffy, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 21 months. What do you think is behind Oda's vagueness with Haki? Even Devil Fruit names and bounties aren't revealed on page anymore. SBS and Vivre cards instead. I genuinely think that Oda, like... Okay, so... How do I explain this? Oda is a writer that I think juggles more than any other writer really regularly has to. The dude is flying chapter to chapter, week to week, sleeping 3 hours a day. And, like, let's just look. Like, how much shit does he have to pack in to, like the most recent chapter? It's a lot. Like, there's so much shit going on everywhere, right? Iron Giant shit. What's Warcury up to? What are the, like, you gotta cover, okay, I gotta cover some people on islands and shit doing stuff. Still got this York plotline going on. Still got Vegapunk shit going on. Gotta cut back to the Giants and Luffy and stuff. Oh, what's been going on with the Vice Admirals? Okay, so they took care of the Vice Admirals off screen. Alright, so Mars, we gotta get Mars back into the fray. It's a lot of stuff, and it's all crammed into, like, this is just 13 pages. I really think that ultimately with Oda and Haki, it's just never going to be one of his strong suits because, like, you have authors like with Jujutsu Kaisen, right? Or Togashi, where they really, really care a lot about that aspect of things, and they're just going to take a lot of their time and mental bandwidth into really meticulously thinking those sort of things out. Even Naruto with Chakra, right? With Oda, I think it's just... There's so much shit in the story that he probably prioritizes over exactly how the power scale system works. I don't think Oda really... I think that he... Like, we don't know him as a person, so you're just asking me to speculate, so I'm just speculating. It is not possible to keep track of as many things as you keep track of and be tight on everything, right? So ultimately, I think Oda's just got a general idea of how strong he wants his characters to be. And I think he has a general idea of, like, oh, okay, these characters should have this type of Haki or that type of Haki, but even shit like Katakuri having advanced observation Haki, right? Like, he can see the future, right? That was a huge deal. So I think once everyone learned about, like, Future Sight, I think a lot of readers were kind of like, oh shit, so there's just going to be this huge divide between characters that can use Future Sight and can't use Future Sight because it was such a big deal in Whole Cake Island, right? So I think we all started to view Future Sight as a really big deal, and now it's kind of just like, it is a big deal, I guess, but it's also just like, we don't, like, you see characters fighting, we don't really know when Luffy's using Future Sight, when he's not using Future Sight, we don't even know how much it matters that he's using Future Sight. Was he using Future Sight against Lucci? Did it matter? We don't really know. Does Lucci use Future Sight? Probably not. Do some of the Admirals use Future Sight? There was some evidence from Marineford that suggests that they do. Is that game breaking? Like, we know Kaido uses Future Sight. Does Big Mom use Future Sight? We don't know. It just doesn't really, like, it kind of just... That's the frustrating thing for me about Haki, which is just that it seems for, like, little bits of time that certain things really, really matter. And then we get a little bit further and we're like... It seems like that was just important for Oda in the moment. You know what I mean? Like, he just really cared about that and the details of that in the moment. But then later on, it's like... You know, you remember when, like, Luffy's clashing with Lucci and their fists are connecting, and everyone's like, okay, Luffy's probably not using Advanced Conqueror's Haki right now. And then we're trying to think, like, okay, but then how do we know? Is he using it against Kizaru here? Is he using it against Saturn here? Like, now we just don't know. Some people say that it was established in Wano that Gear 5th is always using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Some people don't think that's the case. It's just... I think the vagueness, I think Oda really cares about it and probably gets, like, a clear idea of what the current level of Haki he's thinking about works like when he's initially writing that part of the story. Like, I think he really cared about Future Sight when he was writing it, and I think he really cared about the details of Advanced Conqueror's Haki when he was initially writing it. But then as the story goes on, and like, I think he just wants to have characters fight other characters and doesn't want to get into the details of like, wait, but can Luffy, like, can Kizaru or can Lucci clash with Luffy right now? Because Luffy should have Advanced Conqueror's Haki, therefore Luffy should just overpower Lucci. Does it make any sense that Zoro's fighting Lucci for this long when Zoro has Advanced Conqueror's Haki, Lucci doesn't? Do I even make it clear whether Zoro is using its Advanced Conqueror's Haki? Do I make it clear when he starts using it? Was he using it? I think that Oda just, like, at a certain point, he just needs characters to fight for certain periods of time, and then he just wipes away the Haki details. And then there'll probably be some other time in the story where there's some new, really important power-up for Conqueror's Haki, and then Oda will be really detailed about how he writes it again, and then it'll kind of go to the wayside again. I think it's just going to be the way it is. I don't know. Dick so small I piss on my balls, thanks for the 5. Lawn Kid versus Big Mom was a 4v2 because the homies attacked autonomously. If I bring a fridge to life and we beat you up together, didn't you get jumped? That's true, but I still think it's all irrelevant because at the end of the day, it had nothing to do with any of that and everything to do with, everybody who remembers, it was all about the TNT. It was all about the TNT. This is what got her. Right? Because before this, she's still, like, up and about and, like, moving and talking and shit. Like, she's cool. She's still fighting. She's still doing shit, you know? What did her in, like, we all know the universal signs of when a character's kind of KO'd or on the verge of being KO'd, right? It's this. This is what does it. It's not Kid or Law. They were barely involved. Essentially, it was basically just this. It was essentially just the TNT. So, yeah, it's a 4v2 if you want to frame it that way, but I would raise you 4v2 with with the 4 randomly being hit by the 2 essentially having no shot of winning, but then the group of 4, you know, they ultimately lose because a random stage hazard gets them at the end of it, you know? Tom says, Morj, with your logic, Diablo Janbei is Haki? No, because Diablo Janbei is just heat. We already understand how Diablo Janbei works. It's just heat. It's just friction. Diablo Janbei is more straightforward. It's just friction, and then later on you can attribute it to Sanji's skeleton and everything like that. I don't think anybody was ever thinking Diablo Janbei is magic. Whereas with Ashura, there was genuine confusion for a long time with, like, what is Ashura? Nobody really had good theories as to what Ashura is. Everyone was just kind of like, okay, we guess it's Zoro's spirit. And then later on, it's established that spirit is Haki, right? You can't just be like, it's Zoro's spirit, and spirit is established in the story. We know what spirit means. Spirit is Haki. They're like, anyone who has strong spirit or aura, they're talking about Haki. And you can't just be like, no, but for Zoro, it's some separate type of spirit. It's just Zoro's spirit. It's just the special category, which is Zoro. It's essentially just saying that the One Piece power system works like this. There's Devil Fruits, there's Haki, and then Magic Zoro Spirit, which is just its own special category. It's like, I don't really know what to say about that. I guess, you know, if we want to pretend that, then I don't really have a counter, but we already know what spirit means, right? Ashura is Haki, it has to be, because it's established to be spirit. If it's established to be spirit, that means the author is telling us it's Haki, and it literally can't be anything else, because Zoro is not like a wizard, that he's not fucking Harry Potter going around like being like fucking Expecto Patronum, I make this out of my Patronus or some shit, you know? It's a thing, it's Haki, we know what it is, and it makes no fucking sense to be armament or observation. The only thing it would kind of logically make sense as is some manifestation of Conquerors that we have yet to understand, and that's why Oda really went out of his way in 1010 to make it clear that, yeah, this is some Conquerors-related bullshit. Akash Panda, thanks for the 10. Zoro cut Frankie's family cannonballs and cannon without Lion Song. 108-pound Phoenix that cut Ohm's Steel Cloud was deflected by Kuma's paws. Admirals did wide range battle barrier in Marineford with armament. So my understanding is that not everything that's metal is steel, right? I think the thing that was made a big deal out of is that Zoro was trying to cut steel specifically with Lion Song, right? In future instances where he's trying to cut something as hard as steel, like Kaku's Tekkai, Zoro's like, I'm going to use my Shishi Sonson specifically because it's as hard as steel, right? Frankie family's cannonballs, those could be iron. And same thing with Ohm, he wasn't using a steel cloud, he was using an iron cloud. As far as I understand, Steel is what's Steel is stronger than iron, and it's significantly tougher, right? Like, so I think Oda made a key point in that Ohm was not using an iron cloud ever. He was using a steel cloud. I do think that matters to some degree. Not to some degree, it's just there's never been an instance of Zoro cutting like outright stated to be steel pre-time skip. You guys want to see the biggest, the most insane thing ever, though? In terms of like what Zoro can or can't cut, this is what shit was like how Oda used to think about things like pre-time, like early in the story. Forget even pre-time skip, early in the story, like before anything made any sort of sense. Okay. So if we get to, let's see. Okay, look at this. Look at this shit. Okay, is this it? Where's this shit? No. Look at this. All right. So if we go to chapter 12, this would be. I know we're doing a most controversial moments tier, like not tier list, but ranking in a second. This for me would be one of the things that I would retcon. I view this is personally one of my most controversial moments in the story. Okay, so Zoro's got Luffy in this cage, and then Zoro's talking about like hold on. Where's he talking about it? He talks about it somewhere. Fuck. He carries this cage. Yada yada. Fuck. Where does he talk about it? I swear he talks about it somewhere. Maybe it was anime only. I swear Zoro says somewhere that he can't cut the cage, unless I'm crazy. I swear he says somewhere that he can't cut the cage. Oh, maybe up here. Maybe it's here. Oh, yeah. Here we go. So at this point, Zoro can't... Look at this. Okay. Everybody follow this. I finally found it. Okay, this thing won't open without a key. These iron bars won't slice. So at this point in the story, Zoro cannot even cut iron. Like, forget steel or whatever. Zoro can't cut iron, right? At this point in the story, Zoro can't cut iron. You know who breaks this cage? Fucking Richie the Lion. Richie the Lion canonically has more offensive power than Zoro at this point in the story. And Luffy. Neither of them can break this cage, but this lion is able to break the cage. What the fuck? And Richie breaks this cage, not only breaks the cage, but then after that proceeds to get, like, immediately gets stomped by Luffy effortlessly, right? So just gets stomped by Luffy, and then basically becomes a gag for the rest of the story. Like, the very next chapter... Think over here, right? The very next chapter, you have the lion. Whoops. Over here. Here, right? The very next chapter, it's established that the lion is weak as hell. Like, Kabaji just picks up Richie and uses him as a shield. So, do you guys see what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck is this? If you ever want to say that Oda doesn't... I've always said this. I think Oda cares about power scaling a lot. I just don't think he's good or consistent with it. He cares about power scaling a lot in that it matters to him, like, oh, these characters are, like, constantly having to work their way up the ladder. There's levels to, like, you know, these... third commanders, first mates are about this level, but they can't hang with these admirals, and then Yonko. Like, Oda's the one that makes a big deal out of the name Yonko, and, like, the level of being able to split the sky, and things like that. And he's the one that makes a big deal with characters talking about how there's levels and levels to the hierarchy of strength in the world, right? I just think that Oda himself is not good at, like, I think it's one of those things where he likes it and cares a lot about it in the story, but he's not good at it. Because those are two different things. He's not good at being consistent with it. And this is one of the best early story examples, which is that Zoro and Luffy cannot break this cage They have less offensive power than fucking Richie the Lion, supposedly, at least for plot convenience. They have less offensive power for plot convenience than Richie the Lion, but at the same time, they're clearly way, way, way stronger and can easily wreck Richie the Lion, and are much physically just more powerful than Richie the Lion. So it's like, what does this, any of this make sense? Because Richie just like brute forces his way through this shit. Then Luffy just stomps Richie in terms of brute force, as does Kabaji, and then Zoro stomps Kabaji. So it's just like, does any of this make sense? No. Attilia, thanks for the 2. S-Hawk scene best choreography in One Piece anime. Wait, have I missed some stuff? Akash Panda also said Admirals did a wide range barrier in Marineford with armament. Yeah, I think it's very clear that the Admirals are good enough at armament that they were able to do a large range barrier. So that is a really, really good point, because that is the largest range use of that first level of Rio that we've ever seen. So that is a really, really good point. That is a really good point. I did not consider that. So maybe there is some credence to the idea that Ashura might be armament. I think that the likelihood of Ashura being armament versus Conquerors, it's very skewed towards Conquerors, just in terms of general use of Conquerors we've seen versus armament. But you are right. The Admiral's barrier is the largest use of armament that we've ever seen. And if I were to keep going off of that train, I think what Sabo did with his Dragon's Breath is the largest use of second level Rio that we've ever seen. So maybe I was being somewhat unfair there. So great point, Akash Panda. Gonna keep moving here. Attilio, thanks for the 2. S-Hawk scene best choreography in One Piece anime. Are you being serious or are you joking? I haven't actually seen it. All right. Jabril Crawford says maybe the bar is bent and snapped under his weight. I don't know. I mean, I don't understand exactly how physics and shit work, but like Luffy's, like, if it's just his weight, Luffy's clearly physically much, like, Luffy can clearly, like, in terms of general force applied, Luffy can do a lot more, he can exude a lot more force than what Richie's physical weight is. Like, Luffy can swing this level of weight around, like, not swing, but he can apply the metric ton, far more metric tons of force than just Richie's weight, right? That's very, very evident canonically through early parts of the story, right? Like it's ultimately it's about force, right? So just having physical weight only applies a certain amount of force. Luffy can apply way, way, way more force than that amount of weight, right? As far as makes sense. Minhu Huang, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 11 months. Mars backwards is SRAM or SRAM? Could Gorsei Marcus Mars be the Seraphim version of Mary? Okay, that is... You almost had me in the beginning parts, but I was like, is this going to be one of the wackiest theories I've ever heard? But nah, that's funny. I'm going to say no. Grizzly Adams, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 10 months. The most controversial One Piece moment was apparently saying that Zoro used Haki pre-time skip. Also, I feel like Bonnie's deep personal connection to Nika plays a role in her accessing this power. So, tomorrow's video goes deep into the whole Bonnie situation. I had a lot to say on it. I think where I land on... You guys will see where I land on it tomorrow. Where I land on it is basically... I don't think it's a big deal, but I also don't think... How do I say this? I don't think it's a big... It is obviously a big deal in the context of the story, but I don't think it's, like, bad writing. I think that it's a really cool development. At the same time, I think that I understand where a lot of people are coming from who dislike it. And it's one of those things where I just don't think it's black and white. It's one of those things where I can enjoy what the development is, but I've got some issues with how we got here. Honestly, it's similar to my opinions on Gear 5th. Like, I love Gear 5th as a concept. I love Luffy awakening it at the end of Wano, etc. I wish that the manner in which Luffy awakened it involved more character writing and was just... Like I love the form and the debut of the form. I feel like in terms of the writing leading up to it, there's like a million shonen transformations that I much prefer. And even in the Wano arc, I feel like there's much better writing around other power-ups that other characters got. But the power-up itself, I love. Like there's examples of things like that where I can love aspects of it, but maybe feel like some of the things people dislike about it do have merit as well. Like, I just don't think it's that black and white that either you have to love the Bonnie stuff or you're a hater or, or that you have, you can have critiques of the Bonnie thing and still enjoy it, you know? Like, I guess I'm not being very clear with what I'm saying there, but I think you guys can understand that I'm saying that, it doesn't have to just be this was the best thing ever or this was the worst thing ever. I think I like this, and I want to keep this going forward, and I'm excited for Bonnie's character going forward. The things that I wish are more so things that I wish came before this, if that makes sense. And I'll elaborate on that in tomorrow's video. Akash Panda, thanks for the 2. Big Mom didn't lose to TNT. She's conscious, but gravity. Okay, I guess it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. As long as it's not Kid or Law. She's conscious, but fading consciousness, right? Like, we all agree that, for example, 1036, right? Like, once your eyes are out, once your eyes are white, you're done, right? Like, it's fine. Like, you're allowed to have your final flashbacks and thoughts, but the moment that beat King is Zoro cutting him, right? This is the moment that once the eyes are out, that means you won, right? So just because King's still having flashbacks, that doesn't change the fact that Zoro beat him with that move. It's when the eyes go out, that's what counts, right? So when I say that, unless you want to say King lost to gravity as well, that's its own little thing, but looking here, right? Big Mom, fully awake, conscious, thriving, she just doesn't quite have her footing. Then TNT goes off, blown up, eyes out, done, fight's over. It is the TNT that did 95% of the work, right? She's allowed to still have her closing thoughts, her final little, fading consciousness, fleeting reflections, right? But it's generally accepted that, this is your eyes are out, you're out. That's it. Game over. Fuck! I fucked up. I was wrong. I was so wrong. No. This is a tragedy. I was so wrong. Why her eyes are open again? Why'd they open again? No. Okay, end of the day, nobody beat her, right? Nobody beat her. It was the lava / wait. Did more TNT fall on her? What happens here exactly? Why is there such a big explosion? Is that just her landing in there? I'm also a little confused. This is a separate thing, right? And now we've landed on essentially the TNT didn't beat her, Kid and Law didn't beat her, nothing really beat her. I agree now with your assessment that gravity beat her. Don't you dare assume that this will kill me. I'm just confused. Like, why leave Big Mom and Kaido's fate just so open-ended? And why even have Big Mom's final words be like, this won't kill me? Does it kill her? Is it just supposed to be like her being arrogant? I don't know. All right, we're going to start the topic of the stream in a second. New X7, thank you for the 20. Kurozumi Born to Burn is most controversial. Not only against themes of One Piece, it's a terrible message that's borderline racist. I agree. Even if it's about Orochi, he still ignores that he only became that way because Wano persecuted his clan. I think ultimately some people are just, like, you can have similar circumstances and go in very different directions, right? I think that with the levels of evil and nastiness that Orochi hit, I don't think that it can just be wiped under the table because, like, oh, well, he was persecuted in the first place because, there's other examples. You've got fucking Corazon and Doflamingo is the classic example of basically went through the same shit. Doflamingo right off the bat was like, I will fucking murder you all, and I will, I will stomp you all like bugs, etc. Basically, Corazon didn't go that extreme right off the bat, and then later on he met Sengoku, which obviously helped him go down a better path. But even in the first place, Corazon was not as inclined to Doflamingo's extreme reactions and extreme sort of violent psychopathic tendencies, right? I think that Orochi is a similar case where, we can be very sympathetic, but you can also think about other characters that have been persecuted, like Rebecca, right? And Rebecca still grows up to be a very kind, nice person. Shit like that it's not this... We've seen other characters in One Piece who are hated and persecuted because of their name, and they don't turn out like Orochi. Orochi, you can still understand, like, well, maybe if he had a really good upbringing, then maybe he wouldn't be a bad person. But at the same time, given the upbringing he had, it still doesn't excuse everything that he became. But going back a little bit, I do agree with what you said with Kurozumi being Born to Burn is the most controversial. Okay, this is going to be a fun stream. Because we're going to be able to unearth, basically dig up a lot of old moments that a lot of people are even probably forgetting, right? I'll probably give my most controversial moments, and then you guys will also be able to vote on yours. It's not going to be a tier list. We're just going to do a normal ranking sort of thing. Shaquan, thanks for the 2. Do you think Akainu will awaken Advanced Conqueror's Haki or both? We'll have Awakening, Advanced Conqueror's Haki, or both. Oh, and thanks for your first super ever. So will Akainu have Awakening or Advanced Conqueror's Haki, or both? I think Akainu having Devil Fruit Awakening, I think Logia Awakening for the Admirals should just be a thing. I still believe that the others will have it, and I would like to believe that the Admirals already are capable of using Logia Awakening, but just haven't for certain reasons. As for Advanced Conqueror's Haki, yes, I think if Akainu, there's 2 routes I see. If Akainu is as significant, as symbolically important of a character as I personally believe he is, as it seems as he's been set up in the series, if his role is set to be as significant as I think it is, then ultimately I do believe that, yeah, Akainu is going to be an Advanced Conqueror's Haki user. I think it's very possible he might have awakened it after the Aokiji fight, or he will awaken it over the course of the story here, right? So I think that's very, very possible. The other route is basically, I think that if Akainu is not meant to be that significant, if he's not meant to be, if Akainu is meant to be a Luffy opponent, right? So that's the route I'm describing. Then he needs to awaken Advanced Conqueror's Haki sometime in the near future, or he's already gotten it post Aokiji fight, right? If Akainu is not meant to be as significant as I think, if he's just another villain to be defeated, maybe for a side character like Sabo or something like that, then I think he can't get Advanced Conqueror's Haki, because then there's no shot that Sabo could kill him. So that's where I kind of lie with that. Andrew Anami, you phrased it very well. Oda is just ass at power scaling despite constantly centering the story around it, lol. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, that's kind of how I view it, which is just the power scaling really fucking matters to Oda in the story, and there's just so much language specifically around, like, the fucking story is built on the idea of power scaling, like Luffy climbing up and up and up and up, and you want to stay at the zenith. The story is, like, actually one of the most ladder-based narrative setups in terms of power scaling journey that I've ever seen for any story ever. Any shonen ever, right? And it's just emphasized so much the levels like Doflamingo to Katakuri to Kaido to beyond, like Imu, etc. basically, right? The scale of it is so ingrained into the substance of Luffy's journey and what it's really all about, and what Oda's really centering the stakes of each conflict and each new antagonist round, right? However, Oda's also not good at being consistent with how he depicts certain powers and abilities. I also think that Oda, because he has so many moving parts and he has to write so many fights and skirmishes, how to explain this? So if you've got a story, like what I've noticed is that if you've got a story, here's the thing that I've noticed, right? Now that I'm thinking about it. So if you've got a story like Hunter x Hunter, right? In Hunter x Hunter, Nen battles happen not that often. You know what I mean? They don't happen that often, if you think about it, if you really think about it. Nen battles aren't too frequent, and usually when Togashi is writing 2 characters having a full-out fight, like a Nen battle, he will take out a long section of the story to really focus on that and be very meticulous with the rules of it. Jujutsu Kaisen, kind of similar. I mean, fights happen very frequently, but when a fight's going on, it becomes kind of the center of focus, and he really takes his time writing it, developing it, etc., right? It's less often that you just get skirmishes. One Piece, one of the big things, I think this is one of the biggest aspects of why One Piece's power scaling is kind of inconsistent. Skirmishes are very, there's so many characters, so many like plot threads going on. Skirmishes, characters just having brief exchanges and stuff off to the side, or just some off-screen, like, little, like, these 2 characters are kind of keeping each other occupied, or, like, a brief exchange of blows. They're very common and frequent. The thing that is uncommon is Oda actually taking a long time to dedicate a full chapter, or a chapter and a half, or 2 chapters to a fight, right? But characters just exchanging blows, or just some, like a quick skirmish, quick sort of scuffle here or there, etc., things like that. That is exceedingly common in One Piece. That happens all the fucking time, right? The arcs are just filled with that, with characters running into each other, having a bit of fighting, stuff like that, right? Like things moving a little bit quickly, being surface level interactions, right? That is where, like, you can even just that style of writing, right? Even if a fight's supposed to go on for a long time, like let's say Zoro versus Lucci, the level of focus that Oda's going to put on that fight is very surface level, right? It's just like, okay, Zoro needs to just be fighting Lucci for some time, right? That's where I think the difference lies, and that's where I think the power scaling becomes quote unquote inconsistent, because sometimes he just needs to have characters just like there's moving parts, moving pieces. Characters are trying to escape. He needs characters to get away. He needs characters to be stalled for moments and times, right? Because of that, he just functionally can't be consistent with the power scaling. Like, wait, why does it make sense that this character was able to clash with that character? Why does it make sense that this character was able to hold off that character for so long? Why does it make sense that, Beppo was able to knock away Blackbeard and his commander and stuff for a moment and get away? And, like, why was Sabo able to escape the Gorosei when Venus Juro so fast? Like, things like that. It just can't make sense a lot of the time, because there's just too many moments where Oda needs brief spurts of action without having much time to really elaborate or think out why this is playing out a certain way. He just needs the result. Does that make sense? When he gets time to do really long fights, like Luffy versus Katakuri, long involved fights, like Luffy versus Katakuri, or like Zoro versus King or something like that, that's when he really delves into, okay, here's what's going on Haki-wise, and here's why Luffy's having this specific struggle, and here's where he needs to grow here, or here's why Zoro's having this struggle, and he needs to grow in this category, because Haki's very hierarchical in a sense, right? That's when you get the tight power scaling. But so 90% of the story is just like random action, random fights, etc. It's just hard to be consistent with that sort of shit. It reminds me almost of like American comics, like Marvel and DC, where action often happens like fast, spur of the moment, like quick character interact with that character or something. Like, and you might have moments where like fucking Spider-Man is trading blows with like someone he shouldn't, like someone that's way out of his weight class or something, but you just have that happening off to the side because it just happens, right? You just need these things to take place, right? Like, why is Wolverine able to hold his own against Hulk for a moment here or something like that? It just is. It just happens, right? I think that's the case a lot with One Piece. Oda's just less meticulous because there's just more moving parts and more shit happening in general. And the time that he takes aside to really have a fight, write out a fight, think out what the interactions sort of make sense for a fight are, it's much more limited compared to like a Jujutsu Kaisen author, Togashi, Hunter x Hunter, right? Like, who are really going to have to spend more time thinking out, why does this make sense? How would it make sense? This character is faster than that character. What does that mean for this fight, right? Whereas with One Piece, it's like, who the fuck is faster than whom? I don't know. It's just whoever's convenient in the moment. There's some characters who logically are just really fast, like a Venus Juro, like a Kizaru, but in general, like, it's just not going to be that big of a deal unless the fight needs it to be that big of a deal. Does that make sense? Akash Panda said, thanks for the 2. Oda uses one word, Tetsu. Iron and Steel is just a translation. I did not know that. So does that mean that Ohm was using a steel cloud? Because I did not know that. I will say that Frankie Family, the cannonballs at the very least, we don't know what those are. And we can just kind of assume that they're probably not straight up steel. Because as far as I understand, like, a simple example is that Zoro couldn't cut Kaku with a lot of his attacks, and he had to pull out Shishi Son because Kaku's tech guy was making him like a level of hardness that was similar to steel, right? That was the idea of tech guy. But I didn't know that Ohm's iron cloud was actually a steel cloud. I'm surprised to hear that. Linscop, thanks for the 2. This episode might be one of those you need to react to. Is it that good? What episode even just happened? Can anyone tell me what episode just happened? Joao Porter, thanks a lot. Which Wano power-up had more character development than Gear 5th? Every single one of them. Literally every single one of them. Sanji's, Robin's, Zoro's. Gear 5th functionally has 0 character development because there's no character moment associated with it. It is just character knocked out, character wakes up with ability. It is the 0 character development power-up. It's impossible to write a power-up that has less character development than that because there's no character writing to it, right? There's no character writing to it. If you read Zoro acquiring Conqueror's Haki, right? It's is this Zoro's Conqueror's Haki chapter? No. This is simple. This is character writing, right? Or you can read Luffy acquiring observation Haki against Katakuri. There's like writing to it, right? What is the character experiencing? Here, hold on. Yeah, what is the character experiencing? Was the character internally going through? What is the character putting together? How's the character growing in some way, changing their perspective, etc.? Gear 5th has no character writing, right? It is just the knockout, wake up with ability, right? There's nothing, like, Luffy doesn't do anything to Luffy in no way awakens as a character to awaken Gear 5th. Luffy just loses and dies from, he's in the middle of a clash with Kaido. Outside interference happens. Luffy takes the hit. He's out, quote unquote dead. Wakes up with ability, right? There's nothing that's actually internally happening for Luffy. There functionally can't be because Luffy's out, right? There's no writing associated with it. It's just a thing that happens. So as far as Gear 5th goes, there's the least writing. Not just like compared to other characters in Wano, it's just the least writing compared to, like, this is character writing, right? That's right, I've got a promise to keep my captain and best friend. These are the things that he's remembering, recalling. These are the things that he's going through. This is how he's perspective as a character is growing, right? I don't even think that this is great for Zoro necessarily because I don't think it's too in line with. I've got my own thoughts on this, but this is still character writing that's happening, right? Year 5th, there's nothing really there. That's not me being like mean. That's just subjectively like if we go read the chapter right now, that's just it's not nothing that's happening in this chapter is related to Luffy like awakening anything within him to get Gear 5th. It's Luffy's mad about what's going on in Wano, using Gear 4th moves, etc. They're just going back and forth, but there's no change in character perspective or anything like that. There's no like intentional. There's nothing intentional about anything. Like, there's no change in character perspective. There's no reflection or anything going on. Like, what is the connection between Luffy getting hit here and then lights out for a bit and then waking up Gear 5th? There isn't really anything. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Controversial moment. Gear 5th is a Deus Ex Machina. I've never been able to pronounce that. Deus Ex Machina to enable Luffy to beat Kaido. Oda did state Luffy and I have to find a way somehow. No, I don't think that Gear 5th is a Deus Ex Machina because I think that it's been set up for a while. I just think that I would have loved if there was some character writing going to go along with it, right? We've known that Luffy has Devil Fruit Awakening in his bag. I'm not saying that Gear 5th comes out of nowhere. I mean, it can kind of feel like that, but like we've known that Awakening is something that Luffy has to grow, like eventually get to power-wise, right? Like we've known that that's a thing that could theoretically happen. I was just hoping in that Devil Fruit Awakening it would be kind of like, Luffy working on his future sight. I really liked the writing that we got out of Luffy as he approached future sight. I was surprised that it's kind of like he's just gifted Devil Fruit Awakening for losing the fight. You can say, I saw somebody say it's story writing, not character writing. Yeah, there was story setup, but no character setup, which is, I guess, two different things. I like the character writing that comes with power-ups. To me, I feel like, Randy Troy's in here saying Pell wins for me. I think Pell's got a good... Wait, Randy, can you spoil us on Season 2? I'm sure you can't, but I have a feeling, because Randy's going to be in the writer's room, that Pell will remain dead in Season 2 of the One Piece live action. For those of you who don't know, Randy Troy is a writer, obviously a YouTuber, but also a writer for the One Piece live action Season 2, and I imagine Season 3. Gold changed his name from Ivan thanks to the 5. The boulder Yamato hid behind has more durability than Big Mom. Oh, shit. Newx7, thanks for the 10. Don't disagree, just saying Hiyori's message brushes Wano's share of the responsibility under the rug by saying that Orochi/Kurozumi are born evil and Wano wasn't at fault even with the Kurozumi massacre. That's true, but I do wonder if that's maybe something that could be, maybe being hopeful, but I wonder if that's something that could be explored by Momonosuke now that Momonosuke is a shogun, because it said that Momonosuke becomes like the best shogun in Wano's history, or something along those lines, one of the best. And I do hope that maybe there's something that like, because the thing I like about Momonosuke is that he's not, the area that he lacks the most is in, like, he's not as strong as his father, right? His father was a freak of nature in terms of combat strength. Momonosuke's not like that. He'll be decent and proficient, I'm sure, by the end of the story, but he's not built like Odin. Like, Odin at Momonosuke's age, 8 years old, was like, like, going to war with the village and everything, like, going to war with the nation of Wano's male soldiers and stuff like that, right? But I think that Momonosuke's potential could be like as being like a genuine leader for Wano, which was where Odin kind of lacked. Odin kind of shirked that responsibility and was kind of always a lone wolf who did his own thing. His scabbards followed him, but Odin was kind of just like a maverick, did his own thing. And he never actually took the shogun's seat. Any good stuff that was done by him as daimyo was actually carried out by his scabbards who made those policies and Toki and shit like that. So I think maybe some internal growth for the people of Wano could be a good thing that maybe could be facilitated by Momonosuke being leader. Dom, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 21 months. Lords, do you think Oda thought of the extent of Devil Fruits or Haki more? And if you could add one type of Haki power, what would it be? Look, Oda had to take a story that he planned was probably going to last 5 years and stretch. He didn't have to, but he stretched it so long. I think that with Haki, my guess would be that he probably always planned that it would be a bit of a thing, but I think all the details and levels of Haki were never planned by him. I think with Devil Fruits, I think just because Devil Fruits are a little bit simpler, like, I imagine that, like, maybe the only two things Oda kind of thought up of, I think Awakening always would have had to be in a thing because he had to write his hero in a neutered form for the majority of the series with his Devil Fruit, so that Oda couldn't just write him in his broken tune form from the very get-go. So Awakening was likely always a thing. And I wonder if at some point Oda kind of decided that, you know what, let me have like a few categories of Devil Fruits. Because it's easy to write the story and not actually have Zoan, Paramecia, and Logia as different types. That could just be something that Oda naturally over time was kind of like, oh, you know what, actually I've got all these animal ideas and elemental ideas and then general ideas. Maybe these are all just subcategories or something like that. Growth Stonks, thanks for the 10. The name of the ancient kingdom is Binks, meaning birch, the tree kingdom. Chapter 10, Oda draws a map and the exact time period of the real... What the hell? What are you talking about? I guess I need another... Chapter 10, Oda draws a map and the exact time period of the real-life Berks, which existed as a Viking colony and Sweden's oldest country. I think I need something a little bit stronger than that. I think Binks would be a really cool idea. But I think I need a little bit more than something that just like inspired by this colony or this historical thing. I don't know. Attilio, thanks for the 2. Yes, I'm serious. The clip is on Crunchyroll YouTube. Okay, we'll do a poll for if I watch it towards the end of the stream. Black Lightning, thanks for the 10. That's why people saying Luffy not been using Advanced Conqueror's Haki the whole arc when we really don't know. He compares the Seraphim to Kaido like he don't know what it takes to hurt Kaido. Still too shallow, I guess, lol. Yeah, that was frustrating. And people were like, well, he's not using Advanced Conqueror's Haki to save himself. But it's like, they're not fighting anyone for a while, you know? It's like the Seraphim is at night. They have all day till morning. Luffy canonically just heals up as soon as he gets some meat. I don't know. I think just because of the way that One Piece is written, which is that it's more quantity in terms of fights and like skirmishes and stuff like that, that Oda just functionally can't be meticulous about how powers are used in each scenario. Akash Panda, thanks for the 2. Just check Frankie Family's cannonballs are Tetsu. You're killing me here, man. So Zoro can just cut steel whenever? I'm shocked by that. But, you know, at the end of the day, what's accurate is accurate. So Zoro's just been able to cut steel just casually with anything, I guess, at this point in time. But if Tetsu means... Let's look this up. So, Japanese Tetsu. But iron and steel are canonically different things, right? What does Tetsu mean? Okay, none of these are saying iron and steel. I guess this is just something to look into later. But I guess my assumption is just that not everything is literally steel in terms of physical hardness. But if it's possible that Zoro can literally just do that, and he's been able to casually cut steel since he had, since Alabasta, that's kind of insane. Where are we at? Okay, I think we're caught up on supers at the moment, so I'm going to start doing the other thing. Let me just double check with this. Yeah. All right, we're just going to have to see. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Let me set shit up with my new tool, Whimsical, which you guys all love as well. Also, let me see one thing here real quick. Just got to make sure that I'm not going to starve tonight and that I can get food. The way the stream is going to work is just basically going to be, we are going to, wait, how long can I order from this place? Hold on. The way this is going to work is we're going to start from the beginning. We're just going to start from the beginning. I have time to order. I still have time to order. Yeah, we're going to start from the beginning, And just going from chapter 1 onwards, we're just going to write most controversial moments. Yeah. Here we go. And then we'll basically do, you guys know the drill. We'll do some voting and shit and see what's what at the end of all this. Okay. So, to begin with, we need some nice-ass font and shit, right? I just want to lay them all out, and then we go from there. And then we'll do the ranking, right? So step 1, let's just lay them all out. So this is free space. Basically, be creative. Think like we'll be doing stuff in bullet point format and shit like that, okay? So just let your mind go wherever it's going to go. We're going to start from the beginning, and we're going to list shit out, and then we will turn it into a list, or turn it into a, turn it into an actual ranking by the end of it. We're going to start, all right? I think going chronological is easiest. Chronological, or should we just take stuff as is? I guess, okay. So somebody said Gear 5th. I think Gear 5th is a great example of, how do I say it? It is technically controversial. Gear 5th, okay, yeah, let's just throw stuff in. Gear 5th, why do chronological, right? We can do chronological when we're trying to scrape through the story and really remember. Gear 5th is like, it's controversial, but it's one of those things where there's a difference between controversial where there's a significant number of people who dislike it, but the majority like it. And then there's controversial where the vast majority of people don't like it, right? And that's ultimately going to be the most important, right? I mean, so like we've got stuff like Pell. Nobody likes the Pell situation. I'm going to throw in Pound. Pagaya, the Will of Pete. Let's get those guys out of the way, right? Gear 5th, Bonnie as Nika. Can I put... So something like Shanks losing his arm I don't think is controversial. I think everybody kind of just accepts that happened because it just had to happen at that point in the story, right? As we said, Hiyori's Kurozumi damnation. Akash Pandis' Kaido backstory. Yeah, then there's things that nobody really likes, but it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. Like, yeah, most people think Kaido's backstory's ass, but it doesn't, it's not even such a huge component of the Wano arc that people care that much. Does that make sense? Luffy versus Katakuri. Yeah, like, that's something that I really enjoy, but I understand why people don't. I could say Big Mom, wedding cake... Chase, let's say that. Just for myself to organize my thoughts, I'm going to try thinking from the beginning of the story. And I feel like there's nothing really early on. Like, say what you will, like, maybe just by virtue of it being earlier arcs in the story, the first really controversial moment, I think, is Luffy versus Zoro, right? Big Mom amnesia. Big Mom amnesia. Big Mom mothering mode. Holy shit, we've got 3 Big Mom things already. Sheriff Laffy, thanks for the 5. Would uncomfy / weird moments like Nami and Thriller Bark count? Or is it just more conventional, controversial story points? I think we could count those, but I don't know if the Nami Thriller Bark moment is, I think it's something that... I don't think that's something that I see talked about that much in the fandom, other than it just being like, oh yeah, that was like a particularly... yeah, like, it's about as particularly, I guess, in terms of, like, sexually unsavory things that One Piece has done. That's probably the highest, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's that controversial of a story moment, if that makes sense. Because it's not like it was played as a gag or anything either. If it was played as a gag, then that would have been bad, but it was more like, yeah, that's, like, a dark moment. And you know what happened after that to Absalom? Who knows what happened to Absalom after that? Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Absalom died. That's the answer. Okay. To be fair, you guys know my opinions on Wano, etc. But let's dial it back. Let's say, how about more so? Can we think of some stuff from earlier in the story? Maybe it's just because Wano's more recent. Sabo amnesia? Yeah. Sabo Amnesia, and Sabo in general. I'll say Sabo in general because those two go hand in hand, right? The reintroduction of Sabos and Sabo's handling in general. Okay. Cobra spying on his daughter was weirder. Yeah, like that's weird, but it's not gonna be controversial because like the fandom doesn't treat that as super controversial. Okay, let's move back. Let's move back, right? Let's move back. Okay? Let's go from the beginning. Anybody think of anything from East Blue that's missing here? I think East Blue was almost too simple for there to be a truly controversial moment, right? I think Zoro versus Luffy is a controversial moment. I think Pell, that incident, is a controversial moment. Nothing in Jaya really that I can think of. Nothing in Jaya that I can think of. Skypiea, we've got Pagaya. We've got Pagaya. Yeah, Fishman Island, Sanji. That's a big one. Sanji, Nosebleed, Fishman Island. Kuro's stupid plan? I don't think Kuro's stupid plan makes it into the most controversial things in the One Piece fandom, you know? A lot of people don't like Syrup Village Usopp. I think you got to be more specific, though, than that. Is there something specific that Usopp did at some point in the story? Because Syrup Village Usopp, it's just, like, not liking a character. I don't think it's to a point of people hating or viewing Syrup Village Usopp as controversial, you know what I mean? Axan Morgan getting the jump on Garp, that's not a controversial all-time One Piece moment. And Garp was sleeping. It was established that Garp was sleeping. Sure, we can throw Kuro's speech in there. I just don't even think about that. I don't think of that as like a controversial One Piece moment. NeoX7, thanks for the 2. Kid one-shotted and the Kid Pirates annihilated. Oh, yeah. Okay. Kid being one-shotted. It makes sense that as the story goes on, there will be more controversial moments because, one, readers' investment is higher. We're just not going to really care, like, oh, Don Krieg wasn't as strong as we thought he was going to be, you know, stuff like that. We're not going to care as much early on. And two, as the story goes on more and more, there's more, not just more investment, but more, like, there's more, like, this should happen. Like, we've had time to sit with Kid as a character. Because we've had more time with him as a character, it's like, okay, what's the big deal with this dude? Where are you going with this, Oda? Where are we headed? Oh, you're just going to one-shot him. Okay, like, you're going to be upset about that more, right? That's why, like, Luffy versus Zoro, that's probably the earliest really controversial moment I can think of, because we've sat with... If Luffy and Zoro just started fighting in the second arc, that doesn't really mean anything, because then it's just like, oh, this new character that we brought on board is actually... you know, maybe a bit more of an antagonistic figure or something like that. Or, you know, these two characters haven't really had time to build a bond or anything like that. Therefore, them fighting, that's just interesting. It's not breaking any sort of established story dynamic in a way that feels unnatural yet because no established story dynamic has really developed yet, right? So I think Luffy versus Zoro is the first truly controversial thing I can think of. The Yeti Cool Brothers. I understand. Okay, the Yeti Cool Brothers. I never thought that. I don't know if that's actually controversial. I was not part of the One Piece. No, I mean I was on Reddit and everything like that, and I was basically part of the One Piece like online discussion community from like I'd say circa Marineford saga onwards, and really more and more the further that went. Right. Yeti Cool Brothers, I think, is just silly because. I don't know, I just didn't think that they were, like, actually ever built up to be a big deal. It was more like, these are lower level, like, to me it just seemed like random lower level characters that were being momentarily hyped. I don't know. Okay, let's hold on. Let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Okay, so walk with me here, right? Can anybody think of anything from Skypiea? Anyone think of anything from Skypiea? Let's wait a moment. Dragon and saving Ginny? Yeah, that's not really a moment. It's more like it's a general thing that people want it to happen. Okay, Kosh Panda's got a lot. Okay, hold on. Also, I see Garp and Marineford. Oh, and Kinemon. Kinemon being alive. Okay. Garp and Marineford, I would agree that's controversial. Not huge controversial, but there's people that strongly dislike Garp specifically because of that, so it's fair to say. Hold on, can I move this shit? Here. Okay. What else we got? Okay, Kosh Panda's got a lot. Whole Cake Island ending. I'll just spell this out, why not? Whole Cake Island ending. Sanji Cake not doing anything. I'll say not doing much. How about that? Pudding falling for Sanji? I don't know if that's controversial. Seducing Woods, I get that I like the Seducing Woods. That's actually one of my favorite sections of the One Piece story. For me, that's like a section I really enjoy because it feels like, I feel like the further we go in One Piece, it's hard to have a genuine sense of adventure because the characters are very, very strong, right? So like, for example, if we were to look at, like, this is a section of the story I was looking at partly for tomorrow's video, but if we were to look at like them climbing up, like this is them trying to get up the mountain, right? This is a section of the story. They're trying to get up the mountain. Actually, it's like a whole little section, right? Like it's you know, Zoro, like Luffy and Sanji escaping an avalanche. This actually goes on for several chapters. Like now they're surfing and shit like that. Now they're dealing with these rabbits that are surfing with them. There's just shit that happens. Then they got to deal with Wapol and shit for a bit. Before that, they were climbing up with the rabbit situation and stuff. Like, the adventure section of the story, it just, you functionally can't have it as much as time goes on because the things that can actually present challenges to the Straw Hats as they get more and more superpowered and, you know, generally capable, the list of things that can actually provide challenges, right, environmental challenges or minor challenges, etc., it shrinks as the story goes on. The Seducing Woods was one of my favorite sections of the story because, like for example, the Straw Hats arrive at Dressrosa. There's no adventure to be had at Dressrosa, right? Like, the only thing that can really happen at Dressrosa is they run into strong characters and then you fight, right? Like Luffy's fighting at the Coliseum. You're fighting like admirals, Doflamingo, etc. as they show up. And then there's not really much adventuring to be done. In fact, the only period of time that they were trying to do some, like, you could argue some adventure stuff is the sections of the arc that nobody gives a fuck about, which is like them trying to get up to Doflamingo's palace the first time, and then Luffy trying to get up the plateau the next time. You know, like, that's the stuff that people really get bored of at this point. The Seducing Woods I really like because I felt like it was the right combination of, it's a really fantastical location that poses environmental challenges and minor challenges enough that like it actually throws the characters for a loop for a little bit of time, and then it scales into a cool combat encounter. I really enjoyed the Cracker combat encounter. So to me, that entire, and like you don't really know where the story's going after that, especially because the Straw Hats, like a lot of them get captured or taken to Mirror World and things like that. So to me, it's like a nice just section of the story, right? Like, starts easy, cool, fantastical location, then they're getting a bit further down the rabbit hole, and then things are getting a little bit wackier and kookier, and now they're getting lost, and now they're getting picked off bit by bit. Now they're actually dealing with some troubles, like Brûlé and the homies and everything like that. And then they got to deal with Cracker, and then that's a fresh, interesting fight with a really cool twist partway through, with Cracker revealing himself to be inside the biscuit form and everything. And then the way that fight resolves is like teamwork and using tactics and everything like that. And then they're kind of out of the woods. I actually really enjoyed that section. So, but I get why people don't like Seducing Woods, so I'll list it. Pound we got. Oh, Saul! Fuck, I fucking forgot Saul. That's my least favorite part of the story. Saul surviving. Horty's Truth. Is Horty's Truth that controversial? I guess it makes sense. It's a big part of why people think he's kind of an ass villain. Birdcage. I'll throw Birdcage in. I don't think Birdcage is that controversial. Jinbei's post Whole Cake Island fate. I guess. I feel like it falls under Whole Cake Island ending. I think a lot of readers didn't even give a shit that nothing really happened in the Jinbei situation. But that's a really good list, Akash Panda. Greenbit was adventure. I don't really view Greenbit as that, because like they show up at Greenbit and what's happening? They're fighting Doflamingo and shit. I don't know. Oh yeah, Bonnie's age reveal. I forgot about that. Bonnie's age reveal. Post revealing outfits. Can I make this 2 columns? Let's see. This is gonna test my abilities here. The hell? I guess I can't make 2 columns. I just gotta make another thing of this. Alright. We'll just start it again over here. We got anything more to add? Robin sexually assaulting Frankie. I don't think that's that controversial. Truck Kun says all female characters having the same body type or being ugly witches. I don't think that's we're doing moments. So just for the sake of keeping it moments. Because otherwise we just get into things that are generally controversial about One Piece, which is a different category. Boaz Seraphim. I don't think that's big enough. Big Mom beating Elbaf Legendary Giant as a kid. I don't think that's like a really controversial story moment. I think it's something that maybe if you're a power scaler you don't like, but I think it's also just like Big Mom couldn't do that to Dorian Brogy, for example, you know? It's just random giants. Let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Oh yeah, Gear 4th initially was... Gear 4th was initially controversial, but I think if something's no longer viewed as like controversial, there's no point in even putting it. Green Bull getting fucked up, like getting scared off by Shanks. I don't know if that's not controversial though, because I feel like most people, like pretty much everybody loves it. Like controversial, how do I put this? Like, so you got the sliding scale, right? I think there's certain things like Pell, pretty much everybody thinks that the Pell stuff is bad, right? Then you got stuff like the Bonnie situation where I still think the majority of people like it, but there's a good percentage of people, there's a large enough percentage of people who strongly dislike it that it is considered divisive, right? Like anytime you've got a good percentage of, it doesn't have to be majority of it, right? If you've got a good percentage of people who are fans of the series who strongly dislike something, then you've got something that's controversial. When you're getting to something like Green Bull Shanks and stuff like that, the majority, like, if we were to go back to Twitter at that point in time, people fucking loved that. People went nuts over that. I think there's very few people at that point in time who were, like, nobody was a Green Bull fan. Like, people were hyped over the introduction of Green Bull, especially because he got introduced, like, just humiliating King and Queen, which, in retrospect, a lot of people are now downplaying more, given whatever, change in perspectives, etc. But at the time, like, it was... generally, I think, considered really cool that Shanks did that. I guess it was controversial because it was the most firm display of a Yonko and Admiral butting heads that we'd ever had, that clearly sort of had a sort of demarcation where it's just like the Yonko is just scaring this Admiral shitless, right? Whitebeard and Marineford, you could say, well, that was like a Yonko versus Admirals, but that's the whole reason the Yonko-Admiral debate exists, because Whitebeard at Marineford is not a good barometer of Yonkos, right? Because he's so fucking old and sickly. So that debate was always just like, how much are we supposed to make of Whitebeard at Marineford and Admirals going toe-to-toe with him there, right? That was where the whole debate sparked. And Shanks and Green Bull was the first time we ever saw a clear interaction like that from a Yonko healthy in their prime and an Admiral. And it definitely did not seem like Oda's trying to imply that they're equal. So I think actually in that light, because people really loved the moment, but now I'm remembering, yeah, in that light, it was a controversial moment, not because of Shanks and Green Bull specifically, but because of what it meant for Yonko and Admiral. So I will put that. New X7 says Perolareo's father? I don't know what that means. That's supposed to be Zoro's father? What does that mean? What does this mean? I don't understand it. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. I don't understand. Yeah. I'll say Yamato not joining the crew. That was controversial. I'm leaving my opinion out of it. Like Yagami brought up Yamato. I'm leaving my opinion out of it. Like, I think Yamato sucks, but I'm not going to put that just as a controversial moment. I will say Yamato not joining the crew was controversial. Young Smokey VP17, thanks for the 10. Zoro backstory in an SBS instead of Wano. I guess that counts as a... It's not like a moment because it didn't actually happen in the story, right? But I guess Zoro backstory in SBS. Yeah, I'll put it. Oh, I remember Momonosuke aging up was controversial at the time, but I don't think anybody views it that way now. I don't know. JWP, thanks to 5. What's good, Morj time? Just got here. I'm pretty sure next week in the anime is Kid getting negative diffed. Oh, shit. I will watch that in the anime. Can anybody tell? So what happened today? Why are people excited today? What happened? What happened today? Buggy being an emperor? No, people love that, I think. Vegapunk timer. I don't think Vegapunk timer was actually controversial. I think it's just because I think most people were excited for the idea. I remember overwhelmingly people really liked the Gorosei being about to fight. Like the Gorosei showing up to fight. Like that was universally loved. I think it's just, just because like one voice didn't like it, that doesn't make it controversial because everybody disagreed with them. Does that make sense? If like a lot of people, how do I say it? Like just because I, for example, might not like something, but everybody else likes it, that doesn't make it a controversial moment. It's just something I don't like. You know what I mean? If it's something like I don't like something and that sentiment is echoed by like a lot of other people who also agree with what I say, and then suddenly you've got a large percentage of the fandom that also dislikes something, well then now it's become controversial. But if it's just one person who dislikes something and then everybody else who likes it, that doesn't mean it's controversial. You know what I mean? Odin versus Kaido, I don't remember that being controversial. Rebecca's armor, that's not really a moment. Sanji wanting absolute food, it's not enough. Pudding age, that's I don't think that's really gonna fall under. I mean, it was controversial till it got retconned to 16, and then it's like, well, 16 is the age of consent in Japan, so we can dislike it, but it's just it has no bearing on on other stuff. It would be kind of like, well, how old is Sanji now? 21. I'm just not gonna comment on that, but that's like Japan shit, Isonis. Oh, I think the Isonis were fucking controversial as fuck. Isonis. Oh, I remember. Yeah, we already put Luffy versus Katakuri. Okay. I think we can start doing this ranking. We can start doing shit. Gear 5th. I put Gear 5th already. Gear 5th being the chosen one and stuff. Let's leave that for now because we kind of got to wait and see how that develops. I'm also going to order my food real quick before it shuts down. All right. Yeah. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Now we're cooking. Not actually cooking, because that's the whole point of me doing this. Okay. Tom, thanks for the 2. Uta Cannon, Hawkins is 1 month man, Carrot forgotten. Those aren't really moments. I guess Hawkins is 1 month man, but the reveal was what was more controversial than anything. I guess you could say Hawkins dying. Like, if we could be a bit more specific, like characters, like certain characters dying, I guess Hawkins just dying or something like that. Isn't it crazy Hawkins just died? Okay, we're gonna roll with this. I like this list. We're gonna roll with this. All right. We're gonna roll with this. I feel like tier list format would make the most sense. Let's try and get a top 10. I'm not going to order all of these. What we're going to do is we're going to try and get a top 10. Right? We're going to try and get a top 10. The top 10 can be ordered. Remix King, thanks for the 2. Alan, good to see you again, man. What's up? Saul being alive, Boston 2024 Eastern Conference run. Oh, god damn it. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of the Celtics winning. Saul being alive, I think I got in here. Saul being alive. I'll just say Saul being alive. Okay. Let's start this ranking. We're going to do a top 10, all right? So this is kind of like our word bank over here. No, I guess we'll just start ranking as is in here, right? JWP, thanks for the 5. Sanji, Robin helped me was controversial in the fandom. He got a lot of hate. Yeah, I think that's fair to put, but I doubt it will make a top 10 list. Sanji saying, help me. Okay, so, yeah, let's do it. The way we're going to measure this, right? Let me add the criteria. Criteria if I were measuring this shit. Creating a top 10. Criteria. The criteria are basically going to be how percentage that actually disliked it, how significant it was in the story. So, keep this in mind. So this is the two things that we're looking at here, right? What does this mean? This means that the things that we're judging shit on are basically not just... Because it could be... We could easily do something like... it's aggressive. If we did something that most people dislike, like let's say... I think most people tend to dislike... What's a good example? Kid being one shot, Yeti Cool Brothers. Okay, let's say hypothetically, right? Let's say the Yeti Cool Brothers, right? Hypothetically. Let's say most people don't like the Yeti Cool Brothers, all right? Or most people didn't like the Yeti Cool Brothers being a thing, right? Or most people thought it was underwhelming what happened to the Yeti Cool Brothers. Or like Isonies. Like most people think that the Isonies section was really bad in the story, right? So you could say that the percentage that actually disliked it was a lot, but is it that big of a deal in the story, right? Because I think on the flip side, you could say something like Luffy versus, or maybe Luffy versus Katakuri. I think that's like, there's a stronger percentage of people that like it's probably skewed. More people really like Luffy versus Katakuri than the other way around. But because it was such a significant part of the story, I would view that as more controversial than the Yeti Cool Brothers, right? Because like, even if 80% disliked the Yeti Cool Brothers and 20% liked it, versus Katakuri and Luffy, it's flipped. With Katakuri and Luffy, it just became so much more of a big talking point in the fandom for like the whole years out, like 2 years out after, till we got pretty deep into Wano and it was kind of moving past that, right? Like that was a strong discussion. Like, is this the greatest One Piece fight ever? Or is this like a fight that Oda kind of blew, you know? All right. I think easy shit. I think Pell is easily making the top here. I think Pell easily makes it. I think Pound easily makes it. I don't think Pagaya really is in there for top most controversial moments. I think Pagaya maybe isn't quite in there. I think people kind of even forget Pagaya, and I think if his name was not starting with a P, then people might straight up forget that he was one of the people that, was like a Will of P member who should have died but didn't. Justin Holland, what's up, man? Thanks for the 5. Gotta take a chance and say Elders and Nika team gets broadcasted through the live feed as the robot returns to help them escape. Egghead Island's fate, question mark. I think you're saying like visually broadcasted. That could be really cool for the outside world to see the Elders for what they are. And then, you know, seeing some demonic beings fighting against some like really bright, like fun-looking heroes, Luffy and Bonnie. I think that could really cast the... It's tricky, because I thought that it would be interesting if Emu tries to nuke the island before the speech can finish, but the speech is already finished. So, I feel like Egghead's Island's fate is I think the island kind of goes down in flames, but the Straw Hats do escape. And I do think that the world government does retrieve a lot of what they wanted to retrieve. Their pacifistas probably the Mother Flame, maybe the Seraphim, I think. Okay. I'm gonna remove Yeti Cool Brothers as well. I'm gonna remove Yeti Cool Brothers. We're moving it out of the top 10, right? I don't think Yeti Cool Brothers are that controversial. Why is this bold? Don't bold this. Don't bold this. I'm gonna remove Dragon not saving Ginny. We're gonna get to the juicy shit and vote on that. Garp and Marineford, I don't think that's like one of the top 10 most controversial things. I think that's something that people talk about, but it wasn't like dividing the entire fandom. Seducing Woods, I think that's stuff people talked about, but I think it was just like, we don't like this section of the story, not necessarily like this is dividing the whole fandom, right? Or like it's one of those examples of like, yeah, maybe most people disliked it, but is this tearing the community apart and like people are doing long think pieces and arguments and shit about like how good is the Seducing Woods? No, I think it's just like, yeah, most people are kind of not hot on it. Just move on. Akash Panda, thanks a lot. Unanimous dislike is not controversial. For the purposes of this, I'm going to say it's controversial just because I think the overarching sentiment that One Piece fans have towards the series is that we all really love it. So when something happens that really shakes up that enjoyment of the story or Oda's storytelling, I think that that's something that's controversial, you know? I get what you're saying that, like, if nobody really likes that Pell survived, then how is it controversial? But I'm using controversial in the broad sense, right? I'm not trying to be too technical here. So really what we're trying to get at is basically what are kind of the hottest talking points of, like, in the series of, like, either basically saying, a lot of readers saying that was bullshit and that really hurt our enjoyment of the story in a significant way, or at least sparking a lot of debate as to whether that has significantly hurt the series in a sort of way, if that makes sense, right? Ultimately, I'm not going to be too technical with these definitions. Let's just try and roll with this. If you disagree that that's what controversial means, that is okay. Pell, Pound, I think these are controversial things. I think Gear 5th is naturally controversial. We're going to hold off on discussing Bonnie and Sneaka. Kaido's backstory, I think that was really controversial for its time, but it's kind of fallen to the wayside over time. I just don't think people talk about it as much, so I'm just going to move it. I think that's just something that people overall maybe would have wanted more from, but I don't know if it belongs in the top 10 of most controversial things. I'm going to get to voting as we get closer to narrowing shit down. Kuro's speech, I don't even know why it made this list at the end of the day. I don't know anybody I don't remember the last time I've ever seen that debated by anybody. Yamato not joining the crew. This was very controversial. Kid being one-shotted, I don't think this... I don't think the birdcage is controversial enough. I think it's something similar to Seducing Woods, where like a lot of people maybe would have liked it to go faster. Bonnie's age reveal, you know, like it was a big deal, but I don't think it's like, it's not something that ruins the story for most people. It just makes people kind of uncomfortable when they think about it. Sanji wearing the stealth black suit. I do remember that being controversial. I don't know if it's top 10 controversial, though, because it also hasn't come up in our discussion so far. Sanji wearing stealth black. I do agree that falls in the category. Okay. Yamato not joining the crew, I remember, was very controversial. That had a lot of people flipping out. So we're getting close to a top 10 here. Shanks scaring Green Bull, I don't think it makes it here. Ice Oni, again, I think it just falls under the category of people just generally disliking it, but not really it being like story-breakingly upsetting. Yeah. I think that this is probably where we can start narrowing. Do people agree? I feel like this is where we can start narrowing down some of the most controversial things that have happened. Bonnie as Nika, I think, is very hard to place because I'm inclined to feel like it's not going to be like it's very recent, right? So it's fresh in people's minds, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be something that people are really upset about down the line. Oh, New X7 says meant Paris father. Sorry, autocorrect. You mean Pound? Ishmael Halley, thanks a lot for I think the message was deleted. JWP, thanks for the 5. Sanji's Robin helped me was controversial in the fandom. A lot of hate. We covered this. Sorry. Covered this. I think I'm still caught up. All right. I guess Kid being one-shotted. I guess I don't think it's controversial nowadays. Like, I think it was, because I think people really loved it because nobody liked Kid, right? It was more so just like, what the fuck is Oda? Like, I think in that moment, a lot of people were like, wait, is Oda just like really just, was that whole Kid, all that stuff just for nothing? Nobody, like, why did he even write this character for so long? What was the point? But I think people still love the moment overall than not. Yeah, I know I read that, JWP. I was just double checking. Yeah, I think we're getting close. So how many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay. 17. We're going to narrow this down a bit more. And then we got to order it. So many people like Kid. I don't know about so many people. Like, yeah, raw numbers, I'm sure you could find a good number of people that like Kid. But percentage-wise, I don't think Kid had a ton of fans. You know what I mean? Okay. Zoro huffing and puffing for months on end. I guess we can put Zoro versus Lucci, but I don't think that was that controversial. I think it was more so just like Sanji fans having some fun seeing that happen, and I think Zoro fans being irked that was going on for so long. I don't think it was that controversial. I'll throw in Zoro versus Lucci. Like, why not? We've got Kuro's speech in there. New X7, thanks for the 20. Perospero defeating Carrot, telling her to give up on avenging Pedro and Dream of the Sea and stay in Zoe, and Carrot doing exactly that, and it being portrayed as a good thing that Pedro wanted, when Pedro wanted her to sail with the Pirate King. That is a really good point, but I think Pedro didn't specifically want her to sail with the Pirate King. What Pedro was saying was, how do I say this? Pedro was basically saying that everybody has their own role to play, and that you can help in your own way, right? And these are the people who are going to bring the dawn to the world, so whatever you can do to help them is what really matters, right? And I feel like that paid off for Carrot more so within the context of the whole Kick Island arc itself, because her big moment in that arc was Sulong, and basically she got the crew out of like a we're fucked scenario thanks to Sulong form. So I feel like it might have been more so already checked off then. I don't know. I think it was weird the way that it seemed as though Carrot was set to have something significant story-wise or character growth-wise with the Perospero situation, and that didn't lead to anything. But even if as the new ruler of Zoe, she's able to help the crew and help bring the dawn of the world in the future, I think that's okay. I don't think specifically... I think almost part of the idea was that, like, with Pedro not being able to join the Pirate King's crews, that just because you're not able to join the crew of people who will help bring the dawn to the world, you being someone who can help the people who will help bring the dawn of... You being someone who can help the people who will bring the dawn of the world, that in itself is contributing to the cause in a way that is significant, even if you're not getting to be necessarily one of the main stars of the show. So I don't necessarily know if that was Pedro's like you have to join the crew sort of thing, but more so like you need to help these people, which she really did. She came in clutch in Whole Cake Island. I do think that, like, I get what you're saying that this was a controversial moment. I don't think it was something that people talked about too much post that. I think also it didn't help that like a lot of people had moved on to the Yamato train. JWP, thanks for the 2. I've heard of people dropping One Piece because of Sanji and Fishman Island. I personally think Sanji's nosebleed in Fishman Island, like you can say it wasn't significant in the story, but it's one of those things that's just so egregiously, cringily bad. I would argue that in terms of like, how do I say this? I would argue that in terms of straight just writing, it is maybe the cringiest and dumbest thing that I've ever seen in One Piece, to the point that it's just like, this is, like, I feel weird reading this and Oda actually trying to make a dramatic plot point out of this, right? So it's one of those things where it's skewed in that it wasn't that significant in the grand scheme of things, but it's just so universally disliked and like talked about, and it's top of mind for a lot of people. It's just like, yeah, that's one of One Piece. That's like a fucking low point in One Piece, period. It also didn't help that it was in Fishman Island, which in itself was an arc where, if you were reading Fishman Island week to week, let me tell you, right? I've told people this before because I was a week-to-week reader, but I can't really describe the feeling of reading Fishman Island week to week. I like the arc in retrospect now. Week to week, it was just so excruciatingly slow and so much the complete opposite of everything that One Piece fans had been hoping the post-time skip would be, because we had just spent like this whole Marineford saga of the Straw Hats and Luffy in particular getting their ass kicked, so much tragedy, so much failure, defeat, etc. And then we're getting this long training, 2 years time skip, so exciting. Oda took a 1 month break at that point in time, which was unheard of back then. Now we're fucking used to it. He'll take a 3-week break just because whatever, right? We're used to it, right? But at that point in time, it's all relative to its time. It was like a 1 month of no One Piece when we're all like itching to get our fix. Like so many plot threads have been set up. 2 years time skip training, so much hype, so much excitement. Everything in the community, like there was so much anticipation of just like, we're going to get to Fishman Island we're going to get to like, we're going to leave Sabaody. Straw Hats are 2 years stronger. It's so much like the world was just this open book in terms of it could be anything. Anything can happen next. Like there's so much speculation, like who are they going to fight first in the new world? Like what's going to happen first? What's going to be the first crazy thing that happens? Who's the strong characters that the Straw Hats are going to fight? Like is there going to be like Shichibukai that show up at Fishman Island? Is there going to be like Yonko type stuff coming up? Like what's going to happen? What's the first enemy group that they're going to encounter? Like I think everybody, because we hit this crazy crescendo with Marineford, and we were left with this huge cliffhanger of 2 year time skip. Straw Hats training, they got their asses kicked, but they're going to come back with a vengeance and just tear through. And like what is this return arc going to look like for them, right? And so a lot of people were really hoping that we would kick off this post-time skip with a bang. But in reality, it was like the way Oda thought about the story was more so like we hit this crescendo with Marineford. Now I'm going to go back into a lull. We're going to slowly bring things, like we're going to have almost a bit of an intermission. Very, very chill, low stakes, Fishman Island, weak villains. More so about exposition, giving you guys context for the world. And then we're going to slowly ramp with Punk Hazard, and then Dressrosa, and then a little bit of a break with Zoe, and then we're going to start getting to Yonko. So in Oda's mind, it's like he hit this crescendo. He's going to really take a long time ramping back up, very slow. So Fishman Island week to week was just agony for a lot of readers, and a lot of readers were very disappointed, myself included. I was in high school. What are you going to say about, like, can you blame me? I wanted some cool ass shit, you know? Fishman Island was agony week to week, and it was just nowhere near as exciting as what we felt that like Marineford and everything had sort of set us up to be, what the time skip had set us up to be at. And Sanji's, and a lot of people didn't like a lot of the minor changes that happened with characters, such as Frankie's new design, you know, Chopper's new design, and the change in how his forms worked and everything like that, right? Sanji's new gag was not liked by anybody ever. And it was just an accumulation of factors of just like people kind of, can we move on? Can we get out of Fishman Island? Could something interesting happen in Fishman Island? The Straw Hats are, it doesn't feel quite the same as before. This isn't really what we hoped for. This is taking a while. Sanji's gag. Like at that point, like it's one of those things where like when you're not in a good mood, then everything like that might not even irritate you that much normally starts getting more irritating, right? You know what I mean? Like in real life, when you're already kind of like impatient, waiting on some shit, then like some stuff that might be mildly annoying just starts to get really annoying, right? So Sanji's gag was one of those things. It was kind of just like, this dumb gag keeps going too. This dumb gag. Oh my god, the first significant plot point, first significant dramatic point in all of Fishman Island is the stupid gag that none of us have liked actually turning into the most serious moment in the entire arc so far. And it's just like, what the fuck is this? So I will always view Sanji's nosebleed as like my low point personally of enjoying One Piece as a story, if that makes sense. Like, because it was in the midst of an arc that week to week was my least favorite arc to read week to week, period, ever, for me at that point in time. And Sanji's nosebleed was basically like the low point of that arc. So basically, if you just view my entire reading experience, it's like that's the lowest point of the lowest arc for me. Post week to week, Now I like Fishman Island, and I can read through Sanji's moment and just view it as a blip in a grander scheme of things. But I'm saying, like, your initial memories and initial impressions do have an impact on you, so I will always remember it as the lowest moment in my least favorite part of the One Piece reading experience. I can imagine people actually dropping One Piece, at least for some time, because of Sanji's Fishman Island moment, because Fishman Island was not an engaging arc week to week, at least considering the type of energy Oda had whipped, the frenetic, like the frenzied energy Oda had whipped the reader, the fan base into with Marineford and the hype of the time skip and everything. Fishman Island was not what a lot of people were feeling at the time, and I think if you just get to a certain point where it's like, nothing interesting is happening, and the first attempt at doing something interesting is like this gag that has just been grating on everybody ever since the time skip came back, I can understand a lot of people just like putting the story down for some period of time. It's just like, it's not giving what we hoped for. Maria Rivera, thanks for the 5. When he says Perisper's father, he means the cook was way older than Big Mom. He met her as a kid, forgot his name. Strusen, there we go. But now I don't even remember what the original comment was. But thank you very much, Mario Rivera, for clarifying that. That's funny because that must have been bothering you that like I wasn't understanding what was being talked about there. I didn't know Strusen was Perisper's father, to be honest. Ali A, is he? I don't think he is. Am I crazy? Maybe he is. Ali H, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 20 months. Yo, Mojin time. As you were reading the story, did you see the Gorosei being final opponents or more as figureheads? I know a lot of people dislike it. I have always viewed the Gorosei for the longest time as being figureheads, and I used to staunchly argue that it would make no sense for them to be actually strong. And I was totally wrong about that. Totally wrong about that, and I could not be happier to be wrong about that because it's super exciting that they're as strong as they are. We're going to have to move through this fast, all right? We're going to have to move through this fucking fast because my food is approaching much sooner than expected. JP, thanks for the 5. I thought Sanji's nosebleed gag was hilarious at the time. His pervert gag has been grating since then. Maybe some people enjoyed it, but I just remember a lot of people hating it. Okay, let's get to a top 10. Let's get to a top 10. What do we think is most... I think I need you guys to just spam because we don't have time for polls. My food's getting here in 10 minutes. What do you guys think is the most controversial? For me, if I were to say straight up, I'm going to remove Bonnie as Nika because I just don't think... I think it's too new, too fresh. People might not give a shit in a little bit. Alternatively, next week could make people more upset about it. Depends, like next chapter. I'm going to remove Bonnie as Nika. I'm going to put her as like... I'm going to say... to be determined. Let's just say that. Okay? I think if I'm looking quickly, take out Sanji Cake. Yeah, I don't think it's not as controversial as some of the others. I would even say Whole Cake Island ending. I think that it was a mixed bag ending for a lot of people. Pell, I think, is definitely easily up there. Okay, let's say Pell is easily towards the top, right? Pell is easily towards the top. What do we cut? How about this? Let's start this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Start by telling me what to cut. What's not that big of a deal? Take out Mothering Mode? I could take out Mothering Mode. I guess that wasn't as big of a deal as Amnesia. I'm going to put Pell as 1 because I think that's everyone's like go-to, right? I'm going to put Pell as 1. I think Sanji Nosebleed, I think that's like a solid 2. Type 2. Okay. I think Kinemon was very high as well. I can imagine Saul not being that high because I think I care a lot about Saul, but a lot of people like that shit. You know? Take out Luffy versus Katakuri? I'll take it out. I think, although to be fair, that might just be because, like, we like it. I think a lot of people in my viewership like Luffy versus Katakuri because a lot of people became my viewers from me talking about how I thought Whole Cake Island was underrated. But I think broader fan base, Luffy versus Katakuri, I don't know. Take Cake Chase out. Cake Chase out? I can take Cake Chase out. I think that was controversial, but it's not a... I also like removing sequences and sticking to moments. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. What's the last thing we're cutting? What's the last thing we're cutting? Saul being alive wasn't that controversial? I agree. I think I hated it, but and I will always hate it. And it's probably my least. If you were to ask me, you're asking. Let's say you're just asking me. If you were to ask me if I could change any of these things in One Piece, if I could change any one thing, it would probably be Saul. I would keep Saul dead for me personally. It's just that important to me personally. Robin's backstory, it holds it for the longest time in my life. It's just been this sacred thing. It's just like I watched it at the right time, at the right formative age. It just is my go-to memory of like what's the saddest, most tragic, emotionally affecting story for me that I think of. That's been Robin's backstory. So for me, any sort of change that takes away any degree of the perfection that I view it in, is like, that's heartbreaking for me, if that makes sense. It's like trampling on something from my childhood. Even if you don't think it's that big of a deal, for me, anything that tampers with that, like, it's kind of like a Han shot first sort of thing, right? It's like, what's the big deal if he shot first or not shot first? He still killed the guy. It's like, I get that, but it does matter to a degree. Like, changing small things do have an effect. For me, Saul being alive will always be my least favorite thing, but I can understand it not being other people's. If we were to remove Saul, then the thing I would change would be Pell. Because I think Pell's not dying takes away what could have been, like, the perfect... Like, I view Alabasta as close to, like, a flawless One Piece arc, if that makes sense. It does everything perfectly. And it even does the dramatic death perfectly, pretty much. Like, it chooses a character to kill off who's not so tragic that they can't all celebrate and have a great time, and like you feel exuberant and you can see the characters rejoice and everything feels good at the end. But at the same time, it's like the perfect character to kill that it adds that extra dramatic bite to the end of the arc and the climax of the arc, right? It was perfect in that sense. But Pell's death essentially makes that, like, it adds a random, just blatant Mickey Mouse moment in a very, very, very beautifully done, very high tension, high suspense, high drama sequence of events. And I think it makes me not think of Alabasta any longer as a flawless arc. But I think Pell's death would be second for me. We got nothing else to remove. I can do a quick poll as to if we're removing Saul or if we're keeping Saul or keeping Hiyori. But I feel like a lot of people don't care about Saul. I can put Hiyori towards the bottom. I think Big Mom Amnesia is high, right? Let's start doing some polls real quick. What's one? Pell or Sanji Nosebleed? All right, we're gonna keep Pell at 1. I'll do Big Kinemon or Amnesia. Keeping Kinemon above Amnesia? Okay. I was always surprised that Kinemon was so controversial because amongst many of the fake deaths, I just think that he's one of the least egregious ones, personally. Because I don't think Oda did much. Like, I feel like his death went by pretty quick in the first place. I didn't think Oda killed him in the first place, and I don't think that Oda really put that much effort into making us feel like he died, you know? Like, with Pell, it's it's a whole chapter dedicated to killing one man, and then you just don't kill him. To me, that's shocking. With me, Kinemon, it was like a lot of other shit happened at the end of the chapter, and then it's like, oh fuck, like it looks like Kaido stabbed his body after hitting him with his club. But we didn't really linger with it. I don't know, like it's all done in shadow. To me, it was just like, oh, that's just like a classic Oda just being Oda, like something big happened to this character that looks bad, but they'll just get some bandages and be okay. All right, what about Big Mom Amnesia or Pound? Pound being alive. Yeah, the way Kinemon survived was BS. I feel like it's almost like if Oda just said that Kinemon didn't die, that would be more okay, you know? Uh, like him not being reconnected by law is just weird. I think that was I think he made it more egregious, but like you could just have Kinemon just fucking unconscious for the rest of the arc or something like that. I think that's okay. And just have someone get to him and heal him. Okay. Gear fifth. So right now I've got Pound at 5. Gear fifth is really difficult. Um, Gear fifth is really difficult. Um, I'm gonna ask you guys this: how high should Gear fifth rank? Because Gear fifth was very, very controversial. A lot of majority people liked it, and obviously have kept liking it in the series. But the fact that it happened, it was like one of the most just earth. Oh shit! Hold on. Ah, you here? Okay, yeah, I'll be down in 1 minute. Thank you. You know what? I'm just gonna have to get the food. I'll be back. I'll say. I'm kind of doing a weird poll here. All right. Just answer this. I'll be back in. It'll take me 2 minutes. Sorry to make you all wait. Okay, let's see. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put Gear 5th at 6 for now. Cheers, Sama. Okay. Okay, what? Hiyori's proclamation. What did I get? Okay, so part of the reason. Wait, let me see. Did I miss a super here just now? Let me just see one thing real quick. So I had to go up and down some stairs. JP, thanks for the 5. I'll still never get over Gear 5th, just reviving Luffy for free, with no explanation more than the actual awakening itself. Man got rewarded for losing. Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. I think Oda didn't want to... How do I explain? Oda went an interesting route in that he was not going to write anything for Luffy, really, character-wise, but he didn't want to reward Luffy for losing. So that's why he had the third-party interference come in with CP0, and that's why Luffy lost. Like, Oda left the outcome of Luffy's final clash with Kaido undecided, and he was like, yeah, Luffy didn't lose, it was third-party interference, right? So the reader doesn't feel like, okay, Luffy literally lost fair and square and just got it for no reason. I feel like it's written in a sense that it's kind of like, I don't know. It's written in a way that it's supposed to feel like Luffy kept rising and rising to the challenge of Kaido, and finally, as a reward for fighting so hard, he gets to awaken this ability essentially, but it's triggered by him losing. But Oda makes sure that it's not like a real loss; it's a unfair loss. At the end of the day, I just wish that I wish that Oda just actually wrote it like apply some of the character writing he's done with other characters when they've gotten power-ups, or in other stories. Because if you want to do it like, okay, Luffy's death is what leads to that awakening, then that's a cool idea, right? But I would love for that to bleed into some sort of character writing or perspective changing or reflection or something for Luffy right before that moment, if that makes sense. And then that way, the moment that Kaido kills him and Luffy wakes up, it feels as though Luffy had already grown in a sense such that death now primed him to awaken. Like, even death can't stop him now. That's not the feeling that I got then. It was more just like, oh, well, now Luffy's angry and yelling about, like, how Kaido's being mean to the people of Wano. And then Kaido kills him, and then Luffy just gets more power for no reason. That's how I feel about Gear 5th. But I understand, like, it was very controversial, but it's not like... How to explain? Wait. Hold on. I put it at 6 because a slight majority of people voted here, but I actually feel like it should probably be above Pound, right? Because it's just a bigger deal. I don't think people care that much about Pound. And a lot of people voted it like top 3 or something, so I feel like I should average it out to be at about Pound, right? I'm just going to do that. And plus it feels right. Gear 5th at 5. All right, let's do the Hiyori thing. Hiyori thing. Let's see about Hiyori. Also, Fodder for Hire, thanks for the 5. Mr. Mo, the more constant use of Gear 5th is also an underrated controversy. Many people prefer base Luffy. I think more people have come around to Gear 5th's use than initially, so I think it was an adjustment period for a lot of people, but I do understand a lot of people still don't enjoy it. I'm on the train of, like, I'm going to enjoy it as long as we can still get dramatic and serious stuff when the time demands. Maybe it just doesn't demand it just now. Like, if we're getting Luffy versus Blackbeard or Luffy versus Akainu or something, and Luffy's got the same attitude as when he was fighting, like, Kizaru the first time, or even, like, Kaido in Gear 5th, I would personally not enjoy it a lot. Okay, let me do this poll. Gear 5th or Big Mom Amnesia. Now I'm in less of a rush because I've got my food. Before I was trying to be like, let me be clutch, let me try and time this to conclude with me being able to get my food, but now I've gotten my food, so I'm just like, now let's actually do this right. Okay, Big Mom Amnesia. Oh, it's tight. Actually, it's going back and forth. This is really going back and forth. All right, just get your votes in. Just get your votes in. I'll leave you guys alone. This is very tight. Oh shit. This is what controversial means, by the way. This is the definition of controversial. Remember, it's not what you liked more, right? It's not what you, because nobody fucking liked Big Mom's Amnesia. It's what do you think was more, what do you think in the grand scheme of things is more controversial? Because like everybody dislikes Big Mom's Amnesia, but Gear 5th was like a bigger, decisive, game-changing point for the story, right? That had more ripple effects in terms of how people viewed the story, outside commentary, etc. I'm gonna give it 5 seconds. All right, we're gonna keep things as is. All right, let's do Hiyori. Where should Hiyori rank? And I'm just gonna give you, I'll say 3, 4, 5, or okay. Let's do this. I don't think if people vote a lot for 3, then I'll consider doing a poll for it against Sanji's Nosebleed. But I don't know if it's gonna be that high. It's hard to say. Oh, people are voting a lot for 3. Oh no, actually, it's just going back and forth. Holy shit! Wait, this is a kind of crazy. What the hell? I'm surprised by how divided this is. People either think it should rank really high or really low. Or not really. There's just no... Why is this? I guess either you just put a lot of stock into it or you don't. Because there's almost no votes for 4 or 5. I thought it would be fairly split. Can anyone explain? Cases I've seen former fans drop over Nika. That's true. Yeah. I am aware of that. Like, there are people that have just been like... There are people who've lost their enjoyment of One Piece over Gear 5th being a thing. I'm going to go ahead and put Hiyori above Pound. I'm going to do that. I didn't phrase it well before. I'm just surprised at people having Kinemon so high. I guess, I don't know. If you guys want to put Kinemon that high, you want to. I think the Hiyori condemning Kurozumi is really bad. But my opinion for it personally, for me, the way I felt about it is just that you guys know I was generally already very down about Wano I didn't like a myriad of things about Wano. A large amount of things about Wano. So for me, that whole arc, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. So many other things that I already didn't like had happened in Wano that by the time we got to Hiyori condemning the Kurozumi, and that's just the final page or the final panel or moment of Wano or whatever, for me it was just like, yep, that's about par for the course. Like, for me it was just like, yep, that fits, makes sense. That just that to me that was almost like a fitting end for how I felt about the general things in Wano. So it was just like, at that point I'd almost become numb to the number of things that I did not think were good in that arc. And so to me that was just a kicker. And in a sense, I was like, this is the final moment of Wano. This fits to me. It was almost fitting in terms of how I viewed the rest of the arc. Yeah, so I don't even view, like, to me, the things that happened during the arc, like Big Mom Amnesia, shit like, that's more jarring, even though this is maybe even more egregious in terms of how significant it is for how it colors the themes and ideas of that entire story, right? But for me, I was just so burnt out on Wano stuff by then that I was just like, yep, that just fits, honestly. Ismail Haley, thanks a lot for the 2. I still don't know why Hiyori is controversial. Honestly, I don't think it's worth going into right here. I think that you can find like a million people's explanations of why it is, and it would just, for me, I'm close to basically like I just want to round out the top 10 at this point. I'm just gonna leave it for the moment, but I'm sure a lot of people in the chat or other places can enlighten you as to why that's controversial, and why a lot of people think it's just insane to say, especially if you just take it and apply it to any other, like just take the general message of what's being said or the idea of what's being said, and it's scarily close to many things in real life, and kind of condemnations or proclamations that people make in real life that end up becoming very dangerous. It is just like One Piece is a very open-minded series. This is one of the most like narrow-minded and dangerous mentalities that has ever been openly expressed by a character that we're supposed to view as a protagonist, unless it's addressed later in the story. Let's move on. So I'm putting Hiyori above Pound, just because I feel like it was a bigger deal for a lot of people. For me, it wasn't personally, because I was just done with. I just wanted to move on to the next arc, so I was just like, yeah, this is just this. This falls in line with how I feel about pretty much everything else about the arc. But yeah, let's move on. Luffy and Zoro. Where does Luffy and Zoro rank? I feel like Luffy and Zoro, to me, I kind of rank it high. I personally kind of rank it high. 24th Hokage says, I always thought it was a pun off of Odin Boils. It is a pun off of Odin Boils, but but it comes with a very different context, considering Odin boiling was basically this endearing thing that he took upon himself, versus Kurozumi being born to burn was essentially what led to the genocide of the, like, it speaks to the genocide of the Kurozumi clan. I'm not going to elaborate any further on this. I could go off on a long thing, and I'm too tired for another long rant. All right. Pound. Let's say 5, 6. Kurokami Najibi says, Oda explained she was talking about Orochi. Yeah, no, obviously she was talking about Orochi. It's a burn on Orochi, but she's using his name, like his last name, the name of it. If Oda was able to come up with some pun using just the name Orochi, then it would be harmless, but it's not. She's using the name of his clan. It doesn't matter that the intent was about Orochi. The final proclamation is basically cycling back to the very reason this whole shit began for Orochi, which is condemning the name of his entire clan and basically saying, this Kurozumi clan, they're born to burn. It doesn't matter if she's like, oh, but I only meant this one. The other ones are like, you know, I'm sure the others are like, you know, like just try and apply it to any sort of like actual real life context, and it's just insane how like how backwards of a statement that essentially is. She's like, oh, I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you all. I only mean the bad ones, you know? I only mean the bad Kurozumis, right? I'm only talking about the bad ones. I don't mean all of you. I just mean the bad ones. The bad ones are born to burn, right? The Kurozumi are born to burn. There's no, like, it's so, like, the fact that people even take it like this speaks a lot to why certain things happen in the outside world and why certain sentiments can become popular. 7 or lower. Okay, so Pound's not too bad. I guess people are swinging for that. Yeah, and I feel like it's just not as big of a deal as the other things. Luffy versus Zoro. This is interesting shit. Yeah, she's talking to Thomas. She's like, oh, no, I'm sure you're one of the good ones. I'm sure you're one of the good ones. You're not like the other Kurozumi. Again, all Oda had to do was maybe, like, you could even swap the names. Make Kurozumi his first name, Orochi his last name, and then you can do your fun play on words or whatever. Okay. I think Luffy versus Zoro is pretty high, right? So I guess I'll just do it like this: top 5, 6, 7, 8, or lower. This is interesting. I'm gonna do some more polls for this one. All right, 3, 2. Yeah, this is gonna go higher. Okay, Luffy versus Zoro. How does it stack versus Pound? Let's just start with that. I will always say I'd be cool. For me personally, I would have been totally cool with a Luffy versus Zoro fight, but if not for what do you call? I would be cool with a Luffy versus Zoro fight, if not for the reasoning that Oda went about to make it happen. I just feel like, to me, that's, for me personally, I put that in like top 3 least favorite moments in One Piece. I think I've got, for me, top 3 moments if I could change, it would be Saul being alive, Pell. I would leave Sanji's nosebleed alone just because it's so fucking, like, it's stupid, but it's like whatever. I would change Luffy versus Zoro. I'd find a better reason for it to happen, just because it's like Luffy versus Zoro is it's coming off of the back of like this really beautiful storyline where it establishes just how much the Straw Hats love and trust each other, and it like creates this sense of like this unbreakable bond. And it felt like, just for the sake of trying to manufacture a fun fight between Luffy and Zoro, Oda had Luffy not trust Zoro. And then you can say, but it's because they gave him food and stuff, but it's like, okay, but that's really uncomfortable because it means that, like, as much as Luffy loves his crewmates, he essentially, like, if somebody else gives him food, then he will immediately cast doubt on how much he can trust his crewmates. I feel like that's a very shallow character trait for Luffy to have. And it's just not something, like, could you imagine that happening today? I think no. But to me, the idea is that, like, Arlong Park and all of that established the solidity of how unbreakable their bonds were from the beginning, you know? I know I went on that long rant about, you know, Luffy versus Zoro, which probably biases it, but I, like, to me, you could say it's like a funny gag, but at the same time, the things that they were saying to each other, it's just like, it'd be a funny gag if not for the fact that it, like, clearly casts, like, establishes that Luffy does not trust Zoro right then. All right, so we can move Luffy versus Zoro up. We're gonna put it up to 7. I mean, especially because just like you can say Luffy thought that Zoro heard villagers and stuff, but like to me it's just like straight up even like the whole power of Luffy as a character was just how he's able to kind of see through that sort of bullshit and like know who to trust. And like down to here, right? Like straight up fucking like brother Usopp was murdered by Nami. Like fucking someone Luffy, like not a random citizen, like someone Luffy knows says this, and Luffy's reaction to that is just like, well, not here. There's no way Nami would kill Usopp or crewmates, etc. And you could say it's different. It's like, well, maybe Luffy thinks that Zoro wouldn't kill Usopp, but he might kill random people. But it's just the fact that like Luffy doesn't accept anything, any sort of shit talk about his crewmates. Say it one more time and I swear I'll kick your ass. Like, he's just, it's just blasphemous. Like, he trusts these people, right? To me, it just throws a lot of doubt onto, like, even just the stuff that, like, what is the point of this stuff? You know? What is the point of, like, Luffy seeing Zoro eat, you know, these rice balls and everything like that, and Luffy realized, like, he doesn't seem like such a bad guy to me. I'm not gonna go through this whole scene and everything like that, but that is a big part of it, which is like a lot of what Luffy's talking about is like in these scenes, interactions that he has with Zoro on the cross, are basically Luffy establishing that, like, I've heard all of these bad things about you, but to me, you seem like a pretty good guy. Like, it's almost the foundation of Luffy and Zoro's relationship is actually playing into that same exact concept, which is that Zoro gets shit talked a lot. Like, he's talked about as like this demon, evil pirate hunter and everything like that. And Luffy is basically able to meet him, see past that, and understand that Zoro's not the type of person that people talk him up to be, right? That's the foundation of their relationship. And that's even what Zoro responds with, which is like, I don't care how the world views me or labels me. Like, I know that I'm the type of person who's never done anything that I regret, right? That's all. You can go back and read the Shellstown arc, but that's the essence of their conversations if you string all their conversations together, right? So this basically throws that away, and it's just like, oh my god, I heard that somebody says that you did this, therefore I'm going to kill you. And that's literally what Luffy says. So to me, it's kind of the most egregious writing that you'll see in One Piece, like, in terms of how it handles the main characters I've ever seen. So I really dislike this moment. But at the same time, it's complicated for me because I love the Luffy-Zoro fight, especially in the anime. So I wish the fight could have happened for a different reason. Like, even something as simple as, like, Miss Golden Week painting something on Luffy that makes him fight Zoro or something like that. Like, there's easy way. Like, Luffy's very easily hypnotizable. He's very easily manipulated, right? Like, brainwashed and stuff like that. Like, just do something like that, honestly, and I would have been cool with it. But it went with, like, a very shallow reason. If you're going to have the crewmates fight without hypnosis or mind control involved or something, then to me, you need a very elaborate sort of setup to get there. Like Luffy versus Sanji or something like that, you know? Esteban BR says it was between crewmates versus randoms, but the point of what I'm saying still exists, which is you can go back and reread everything from Shellstown, and it establishes that Luffy does not trust the word of random people. He judges character that by themselves. Luffy, when he's introduced to Zoro, the whole point that Kobe keeps telling him, that other people keep saying, is that Zoro is evil. And Luffy's just like, no, I can tell for myself that this guy's good. That this guy is like the type of person that I would want with me by my side and on my crew. He's a good person. What other people are saying is false. That is, in fact, the foundation of their entire dynamic, right? And you're getting nitpicky once you're just like, well, Johnny or Yasaku's talking about Usopp versus like random people and stuff like that. No, like throughout the story consistently, Luffy does not trust any shit talk that anybody says about any of his crewmates. Luffy was barely even close with Robin whatsoever, and he didn't believe that she had assassinated Iceberg, or that she was trying to like hurt innocent people and stuff like that. Luffy wasn't as close to Robin as he was close as he was to Zoro at this point in time. He didn't believe that. Luffy didn't believe that Sanji would shit talk the crew when Cracker was trying to say that. Like, Cracker didn't even say that Sanji did anything evil. Sanji was just like, Cracker didn't even say that Sanji did anything evil. Cracker was just like, yeah, Sanji just said that, like, he acted like a prince and said that you guys are beneath him, and Luffy got angry at that. Like, Luffy throughout the story consistently will always trust his crew, and that's because he can understand the type of person they are. This is just maybe the most shallow writing I've ever seen when it comes to the dynamic between Luffy and his crew, and it just kind of treats it as very trivial or easily breached or broken, when it's supposed to be one of the most ironclad things in the entire story. Ishmael Haley, thanks for the 5. Luffy was letting off steam. His new villager friends all of a sudden and are dead. First of all, they're not dead because they told him what happened. He in the end was going to trust him. It was just bros, right, Ring? I think that's headcanon, because it's just like, it goes against everything that was actually written in the scene, which is like Luffy's actually pissed at Zoro, like genuinely angry and furious. Like it was not written as though like this is just Luffy blowing off steam or something like that. I don't like, in the end he was going to trust him. I just don't know where that's coming from, because it's antithetical. It's like clearly contradicted by what's actually written in the story and how the characters are portrayed in that moment. To me, it's just like it's like if a fan just randomly decided to write the story for a little bit and just wanted to see Luffy and Zoro fight for no real reason and came up with the most basic reason possible. All right, Pound. Sabo Amnesia, where does this rank? Again, not how you feel about it, but just like generally how controversial do you feel like this has been throughout the story? Let's start with this. Okay, people put okay. Okay. What if we do... Let's just say, for the sake of checking things, let's say Sabo Amnesia versus Hiyori moment. And I'm gonna get water real quick. Okay, Hiyori takes it there. Eyes96, thanks for the 5. Morj, it's almost my lunch break and I'm hungry. What did you end up ordering? So, I normally yesterday I did not get to eat any breakfast sort of foods, if that makes sense. I essentially skipped breakfast. So for whatever reason, I was just most days, it's hard to explain. On weekends, I really like being able to eat some level of breakfast food, right? I just like it. On a weekday, on a Saturday or Sunday, I feel like I should be able to eat breakfast food. So today I was just really fucking craving, and today was a very, 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 very packed day for me with a lot of stuff to cover. I told you guys I've had to do a lot of shit today, basically. Specifically, I just was craving a breakfast burrito for dinner today, and I just had that in my head since like partway through the day. I was just like, today I just deserve a breakfast burrito. I just do. So I'm ordering that, or I have ordered that basically. Okay, so Hiyori takes it there. But thanks for asking. JWP, thanks for the 5. Sabo Amnesia gets overshadowed by how much people like Sabo and how important he seems to be in the final saga, plus his abilities are cool. Yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of like, if you're okay with the result, like the resulting storyline that comes out of it, then you're not going to feel as that type of way about what's actually, like, how we got there, I guess. The amnesia, it's more so to me, it's the fact that it's become a recurring tool in Oda's, toolbox, which is like, how do I get Big Mom to do this? Okay, how about we just do amnesia again, Okay, let's do Sabo versus Pound. Crow Stray God, thanks for the 5. Evening Morj, is there anything in the story that you know will most likely happen but don't look forward to? That's such a good question. That's a great question. No, there's nothing that I know will happen but don't look forward to. Because it's like there's things that could happen, but nothing that seems concrete. I genuinely don't think that there's anything that seems concrete, like it will more likely than not happen in the story, or like far more likely than not will happen in the story, that I'm genuinely like, I won't like that when it comes to take place. I guess Saul and Robin's reunion. I just don't want to see that, period. I still just wish that Saul was not brought back to life. To me, just seeing them get to reunite and like some quick, like, I don't know, whatever, like, it'll just feel so, for me, it'll just be like, for what? The beautiful scene of Robin thinking she's saying goodbye to Saul forever, losing her friend forever, because that is what she thought in that moment. Now it's just like, yay, we get some, here's the Mickey Mouse moment. It's like, cool. I think that's the moment that I will dislike the most. All right. That is a good question. Okay, so we're putting Sabo a pound. All right. Yami, thanks for the 2. You think one of the Gorosei was a spy on Jobo's crew? No, simply because I think one of the Gorosei could be a traitor, but that's to be saved for another video. But I don't think that one of the Gorosei is. Do I change this to tomato? I was like, what the fuck? I don't think one of the Gorosei was on Jobo's side, largely because I think the Gorosei may have been creations of Imu, right? We know that creations of your own can turn against you, as we've seen throughout this arc, but I doubt that they were on Jobo's side initially way back when. I don't know. All right, finally. Yamato not joining the crew. How controversial do we feel that this was? I like for some characters, in some moments, you can just say it. Like Pell, Pound. We already know what that is. I guess Kinemon, you could have just done that too, but I don't know. Okay, Yamato not joining the crew. It's not about whether or not you wanted Yamato to join. Just think back to how controversial this was in the general One Piece fandom when Yamato was revealed to not be joining the crew. And in the meantime, fodder for hire, thanks for the 5. Saul being alive undermines the message of Straw Hats being Robin's healing and family. I mean, it kind of doesn't, because it's like, well, she had to go through that first before getting to reunite with Saul as her first friend, right? But at the same time, it's just, like, to me, that's a technicality. It's like, okay, well, it's just having your cake but eating it too. It's like, okay, so she had to make other friends first before then getting to... Like, the whole point is that Saul's saying, like, you're losing me, right? I'm the one friend you made. You're losing me. But there will be, like, your true lifelong friends. They are out there, right? The idea is you're losing something to gain something. That's a beauty of storytelling. That's a beauty of just character arcs. That's a beauty of just what drama means, right? But instead, it's just like, okay, I'm losing you for a bit. Like, well, no, I'm losing you, and now I have to find that other thing, which is true friends that are out there. And guess what? Pleasant surprise, I get Saul back anyway, so, you know, I'd actually just get everything in the end, right? And now you might be going into, well, Robin still had all those decades and years of being by herself, yada, yada, yada. I get it, but I'm saying, what was the more poignant idea in the first place? Lose and then gain? Or then lose, gain, and then still gain back, right? It's fairly straightforward. I'm going to elaborate on it more in video format when Saul returns to the story. I cannot wait for that time to happen, just because I have a lot of shit to say that I didn't get off the first time around. Okay. Because even now, some of you might still be like, no, Morj, that doesn't really follow, doesn't make sense. It's like, cool. I don't feel like the amount that it would require of breaking down just how horrendously wrong it is that Saul is alive, it is not worth getting into at this moment. Okay, so this is difficult because this is all over the fucking place. All right, I'm just going to pick something and pit Yamato against it. Yamato not joining the crew versus Hiyori. Let's do that. Yamato not joining the crew versus Hiyori. Interesting. I remember Yamato not... I feel like these two are very comparable, because just in terms of, like, the level of discourse that came out of, like, how upset people were... Because people at the end of Wano were upset about a few things. Many of my viewers were upset about the raid not failing, but even if you set all of us aside, right, many people were upset about a couple things coming out of Wano. A lot of people were really upset that Yamato was not joining the crew, so a lot of people were like, what the fuck? What was all that for? Why was Yamato even in this, whatever? Why did Oda write her about wanting to join so much? And And 2, the final closing panels of Wano being like Hiyori sending out that really, really fucked up message. Okay, so this is a tight one, but it looks like Hiyori's probably going to take it. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's do Yamato versus... Gamos27 says Fodder for Ice says Yamato didn't interact with once with the crew during the raid. I think she ran into Frankie once. I think early on, I forget. Okay, so we're putting. All right, so we figured out Yamato's sweet spot then. Yamato goes here. All right. Yeah, we figured it out. Good shit. Whew. All right, everybody. We got a list here. Okay, so One Piece's most controversial moments as picked by the viewers. One is Pell not... Okay, from the lowest, right? A lot of these are characters just not dying, right? So 10 is Pound not dying. 9... A lot of these are also amnesia. So you actually can kind of see some of the recurring little moments, right, that we don't like. We don't like characters not dying. We don't like amnesia, right? I think any moment that feels like cheap storytelling, so also like Luffy versus Zoro also feels like a bit of cheap storytelling similar to amnesia. So Pound not dying, that's big, right? It's one of the more egregious no deaths. Sabo amnesia, obviously. Luffy versus Zoro, I probably persuaded you guys a bit in that direction just because I think it's so horrendously bad. Yamato not joining the crew. That's one of the few that's kind of like largely based on... I think out of everything here, Yamato not joining the crew is the only one that's based on just like a heavy reader expectation of what should happen in the story, and then that expectation not being met. Everything else is different, right? But this is the big one where it's just like everyone believed that this should happen, or not everyone, but a very, very large percentage of people believed that it should happen, and then when it didn't, they were upset. And then on top of that, a very large percentage of people, even if you didn't want it to happen, when it didn't happen, people were still just confused, like, why even write so much about this character in the first place, right? Hiyori condemning Kurozumi, yeah, probably the worst ending moments to an arc we've ever had in One Piece, just in terms of just being so, like, blind as to what type of messaging that's promoting. That seems not just bad for real-world context, but, like, antithetical to a lot of One Piece's own, like, messaging outside of that, to the point that it's almost like, is this something that's going to be addressed later in the story or something like that? But it just seems like a writing misstep, I think, in terms of how it was going to be taken by Oda when Oda wrote it, especially because he addressed it in an interview and seems to have missed the point of why people think it's bad. Gear 5th. It's funny, Gear 5th is the only one of these moments that could easily be number one in, like, if you did a poll of people saying, like, what's One Piece's the greatest moment in One Piece, Gear 5th could also be top 5 in that, right? Maybe even voted number 1, depending on the audience in that. But Gear 5th could be top 5 in most controversial moments and top 5 in greatest One Piece moments. It's just the way that shit's going to go. It is a very, very drastic change in how we view the main character and, you know, his ability and his role in the story, etc. Joy Boy Awakened, all of that shit, all coming together at once. Big Mom amnesia, just a much more egregious version of Sabo amnesia, and amnesia in stories is generally a big no-no. It's kind of like the simplest and dumbest, laziest form of writing. It's usually just because you need something convenient to happen, and therefore you really need a character to act in a manner that doesn't make any sense, and so amnesia is the simplest way, which is just like, okay, what if this character was just a blank slate character for a bit? Why? For no real reason. Doesn't help that for Big Mom, it was just because she fucking was in underwater for a bit or something like that. I don't know. Oxygen deprivation, I guess maybe. Kinemon being alive. Yep. I personally would not even put this, like, this is so, for me, this ranks so low in terms of One Piece moments, in terms of, like, how bad I think they are. I never even thought he was dead, and I don't think Oda did much to make us believe he was dead. I think part of why people really dislike it is the reasoning that was given it's one of those cases where maybe not giving the reason would be even better than actually giving a shitty reason. Then Sanji's nosebleed at Fishman Island. I'd say this is just the stupidest writing moment that One Piece has ever had. Sanji's nosebleed at Fishman Island. It's not that important for the overall plot, but it's just something that people will never forget, because it's just like a bad gag, like a really bad gag that nobody liked and everyone wanted to go away, and then it's just like taking this gag and trying to make it like a really serious part of the plot. It's just like something that everybody already really dislikes, but it's trying to overlook because like we love One Piece and we just want the story to be enjoyable, right? But it's like there's this annoying thing that's not going away, and it's not going away, and it's not going away. When's Oda gonna stop doing this dumb Sanji gag? And it's like, here, now it's a huge fucking deal, and now you can't even ignore it, and now it's actually the whole story's about it. And everyone's just like, what the fuck? This is ass. And then Pell is the saddest for me, because Pell was a beautiful moment that capped off just one of the best finale sections of any One Piece arc. If you go back and read the last 10 chapters of the Alabasta War, it's just so much tension, so much suspense, so much, the atmosphere is so heavy, the characters are so emotionally in turmoil from the moment, right? Like, it's some of the most emotional character writing Oda's done. Just the Straw Hats, Luffy, Vivi, Cobra, like all these major characters, just so just pulling at all of their heartstrings, pulling at all of our heartstrings. And Pell is this capping moment, the perfect character kill off, just important enough that it's gonna have some impact and feel like something significant of consequence is truly happening to the cast of characters that have experienced all this arc. Would have been the first major death in One Piece, or the first character death in One Piece that we, outside of a backstory, right? Perfect for an arc of this scale and this magnitude and these level of stakes. And also just the perfect type of character to kill off that wouldn't leave a negative sort of gloom over the celebrations, right? Leave a negative aftertaste or aftermath, when everyone's celebrating, right? It's because the Straw Hats didn't really fucking know Pell, right? And Vivi would probably accept that he went out being the honorable warrior that he is, etc., right? And then Oda just took it away, which is really sad, because unlike a lot of these other things, it's like, I guess Pound is like this too, because it's a beautiful thing that happened and it's being taken away. This is a beautiful thing that happened, like peak writing, and it's being taken away. So yeah. Anyway, Eyes96, thanks for the 5. Just curious. Then, would you rather the Kishimoto route with the Ito Tensei and temporarily have Saul come back for a Happy Robin interaction instead? No! No, nobody comes back. Death is death. Just have them die, please. I would not like that either. That shit is bad for the simple fact that he did not have Jiraiya come back. For the simple fact that Kishimoto knew in his heart of hearts that it would be bad to have Jiraiya come back. Because in his heart of hearts, he understood something, which is that fucking with death and having these characters come back for emotional moments is ass. The fact that he understood that I need to have, they didn't recover his body or something, right? There was some reason, he came up with some reason for why Jiraiya coming back would be bad. Because he knew in his heart of hearts, he's like, I'm doing something bad with this, trying to squeeze some cheap emotional moments out of this shit, having these characters reunite with characters from the dead that, emotionally affected them for, cheap storytelling. I know I'm doing something bad in my heart of hearts. Okay, I will leave Jiraiya alone then. Because it's the fact that he left Jiraiya alone, that in itself means that he knew that the whole thing was not good. For the record, I thought Ito Tensei was cool for the concept of getting to fight past characters. I did actually like that. But using it to manufacture emotional moments by just playing with the idea of what death and finality means, that's just ass writing, right? The fact that he knew, the simple fact that he understood not to cross the line and do that with Jiraiya, knew that he was doing something shitty, storytelling-wise, when he was writing those other emotional moments of characters reuniting with past dead characters. It's just, the proof is in what he resisted and was able to curb himself from doing, right? Because if he genuinely believed that was really good writing in the first place, then Jiraiya would have been the piece de resistance of that, the crown jewel of this dead character reunion shit. That would have been the ultimate one, right? He would have used Jiraiya for that. But no, he knew that he was wading into some murky waters there and doing some stuff that's a little taboo. So he was like, okay, I'm not gonna do the absolute taboo of bringing Jiraiya back and manufacturing a moment out of this. Anyway, all right, everybody, this was a fun stream. We will do a best One Piece moment stream in the future, and that'll be way even more fun than this one. Although I had a lot of fun actually going back through this and just remembering everything, because like, you know that there's controversial One Piece moments, but seeing it all lined up, it's like, yeah. And like a lot of these are like, I don't know, I don't think your speech is that bad or whatever, but it's funny to see what some people consider to be controversial and not controversial. All right, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in, and yeah, I'm gonna call it a day here and eat my dinner. Thanks.